Magical Lineage. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1, Wizard. On the green grass slope, a figure jumped out of the forest. At first, he was jogging, then gradually he walked fast, and finally he walked slowly like a stroll. After walking for a while, he finally stopped when he was about to reach the lake at the bottom of the grass slope. I'm so tired after just a few steps. My body is too weak. Ronan stood by the lake, panting, complaining, and taking off his shoes. He tied the 2 deerskin boots he took off with his shoelaces and hung them around his neck, and rolled up the hem and sleeves of the long robe on his body, and then stepped carefully into the water in front of him step by step. When the cold lake water covered his ankles and slowly wrapped around his calves, Ronan scooped up some water and splashed it on his face. He immediately felt comfortable and relaxed. At this time, on the rippling water, the figure of a young man was swaying. Chestnut hair, thick eyebrows, high nose. His facial features are not bad, but his eyes are dull, his skin is dull, his face is swollen, and there are 2 particularly obvious dark circles under his eyes, giving him a bloated, decadent and almost wretched temperament. This is. I usually reward myself too much? Paw. Ronan slapped the water, breaking up the reflection in front of him, and slowly turned to walk towards the shore. There was a green walnut tree on the shore of the lake, and there were wild thatch grass beside the tree. Ronan lay down under the walnut tree, with his hands on the back of his head, looking at a few black goats grazing leisurely on the hillside in the distance and thinking about things. Counting it, this is the 3rd day since he crossed over. The body he crossed over to was originally named Ronan Damien, and he was the son of an earl in the kingdom. Because he was accidentally detected to have the potential to become a wizard, his family sent him thousands of miles away to study in this place where wizards gather. Unfortunately, this guy's aptitude is not good, and he himself is not motivated. After half a year, he is still wandering around the gate of the wizard, and his life is miserable. If Ronan had not been reincarnated, if nothing unexpected happened, in a few months, the original body would have been forced to pack up and leave. Thinking of this, Ronan couldn't help but feel a strong sense of resentment in his heart. It would be fine if he could have reincarnated half a year later, when the original body should have returned to his own earldom. After occupying the magpie's nest, he can still happily experience the life of a noble young master riding a horse, drinking tea, and playing poker with his personal maid every day. I was born at the wrong time. Ronan sighed, propped himself up, and put on his shoes again. Today is the day he officially tried to walk out of the house after reincarnation. He planned to cross the hillside in front of him to the front of the forest and explore the small map nearby. But just after walking 2 steps forward, a few black goats that were originally grazing on the hillside in the distance suddenly ran away as if frightened. The next second, 2 small figures appeared in Ronan's vision. One in front and one behind, chasing each other quickly, with dazzling light bursting in the middle. Fuck. Ronan's pupils shrank and his expression suddenly became nervous. Without much hesitation, he immediately turned 180 degrees and ran away. Some fragmented memories flashed through his mind. The Hoddam Wizard Academy is located in the center of the gathering place of Hoddam Wizards. The entire academy is under the protection of a huge rune array. It is peaceful and tranquil, and it is a paradise for practicing and living. Outside are large and small markets and living areas built on the academy. Although they are outside the protection of the rune array, they are usually managed by the wizards of the academy and the order is relatively stable. The place where Ronan is now is in the wild at the junction of the town and the forest. It is already out of the safe zone. No one is in charge, and naturally there are no rules. On weekdays, those wizards will choose this area for PK, killing, revenge and treasure hunting. Ronan had only heard about it before, but he didn't expect to encounter it today. Before running into the forest, Ronan hurriedly looked back, and happened to see one of the 2 figures on the hillside in the distance slowly falling to the ground. His heart tightened, and he dared not look anymore. He just buried his head in the hood of his robe and ran forward according to his memory, trying to stay away from the right and wrong struggle in front of him as much as possible. It can't be said that Ronan is timid. The main reason is that he is just a small first-level wizard apprentice, which is the lowest level in the wizarding world. And so far, he has not even learned a 0-level spell. If he fights with others, He will be a pure lamb to be slaughtered. If you don't have the strength to meet a big boss and start killing, why don't you run away? Stay where you are and wait to be killed by the aftermath. Ronan passed through bushes, earth slopes, and mud all the way. He turned and turned in the quiet forest until he stopped in front of a tall and dense oak tree. The oak tree was covered with dense old vines. A small gray wooden house was located between the branches surrounded by vines. This was Ronan's home. The wooden house was built on the tree to prevent wild animals in the forest. The wooden house itself had almost no protection. But when he saw his own small house, Ronan felt more or less safe. The tree house was 7 or 8 meters above the ground. Without taking a breath, Ronan grabbed a vine hanging from the tree and climbed up. When he arrived in front of the tree house, he fumbled for a brass key from under his neck. Click, bang. He quickly opened the door and slid in, then closed the door hard. The cabin was hot and humid, and the air was filled with a faint smell of mold. Even though there was a window, the light in the house was still dim because of the leaves and vines outside. In the dark and quiet cabin, Ronan leaned against the wooden door and panted heavily, his heart beating like a drum. His mind was racing. What if the wizard on the hillside came to him to kill people? Should he run away? Where to? Is it too late? Ronan kept thinking until his heartbeat gradually calmed down. He let out a breath, groped his way to the table in the middle of the room, grabbed the kettle on the table, and gulped down a few mouthfuls of water. Crack, the flint struck, sparks flew, and a candle was lit. The dim candlelight quietly reflected Ronan's melancholy and gloomy face. Nothing happened at the moment, and it was estimated that no one would come to kill people, but the experience of the crisis just now still made him feel uneasy. There was no sign at all, and it came to him unexpectedly. He was lucky to avoid it this time, but what about next time? What about the next time? Similar things are not uncommon in the wild. Every killer wizard has a different personality. What if he encounters an unpredictable and murderous wizard? Ronan's expression changed, and he suddenly seemed to have made up his mind. Move to the city tomorrow. But when he rummaged through boxes and found all his belongings, he counted them and had to give up the idea helplessly. In fact, the original body left a lot of treasures. After all, he was born into a noble family, but the currency in the wizarding world is magic stones, and secular gold and gems have no value here. All the magic stones on Ronan's body can't even add up to one, and if he wants to live in the town living area, he needs a low-level magic stone as a deposit for renting a house. As for the college area, the monthly accommodation fee for the student dormitory there starts at 1 magic stone. Unless I choose to sell the things I brought out of the college. Ronan was depressed. Selling the inheritance means completely abandoning his identity as a wizard and giving up this path. Then what's the point of him staying here? It's better to buy a boat ticket and go back home. Forget it, just hold on. Although the treehouse area is dangerous, there are many people living there. Try to be careful, go out less and have less contact with people, and the danger may not fall on me. Ronan could only comfort himself in this way. After a long run, his emotions were up and down, and the dark and stuffy cabin, Ronan's tense nerves relaxed and he felt sleepy. He closed his eyes and fell into deep sleep. Chapter 2 Meditation. When he woke up from his sleep, he rubbed his eyes and looked out the window, only to find that the sun was about to set outside. Ronan's first reaction was to cook quickly, otherwise it would be too uncomfortable to cook with candles when it got dark. And he was really hungry at the moment. After washing his hands with water from the water tank, Ronan took out the food left by his predecessor, a kind of mixed grains of quinoa, corn, black beans and various things he couldn't identify. This thing is probably worth only a few copper coins outside, but in the Hoddam wizard land, 1 kilogram requires 1 magic stone grain. A low-level magic stone can be split into 100 magic stone grains, which means that a magic stone can only buy a mere 100 kilograms of this coarse grain. It has to be said that the prices in the wizard land are really ridiculous. Ronan scooped 2 spoonfuls of grains into the small pot, and then added some water. While the rice was cooking, he cooked himself a bowl of soup with wild mushrooms and a few pine pigeon eggs picked up by his predecessor in the forest. A simple dinner of rice with whole grains and mushroom egg drop soup is ready. When people are really hungry, they don't care about the texture and taste, as long as they can fill their stomachs. When Ronan was full and had enough, he walked out of the tree house slowly with a bulging belly. The sky outside was completely dark. The night sky above his head turned into deep blue, But the surrounding forest gradually gave birth to faint light of stars, not dim. A large number of small creatures that looked like fireflies flew out from the ground, in groups, like dandelions blown by the wind, dyeing the quiet night into a fairy tale dream. Unfortunately, Ronan slapped his arm hard and killed a mosquito. There are so many mosquitoes in this damn place at night. The robe on his body could not prevent mosquito bites at all. Ronan was bitten all over his head after standing at the door for a while. He hurried back to the cabin with a grin. After a moment, he walked out again. Ronan, who reappeared, sprinkled a large amount of insect-repellent powder on his robe, and had a small net bag and a translucent white gauze bag in his hand. Ronan climbed on the branch of the old oak tree and used the net bag to catch the fluorescent lights dancing around in the night. This kind of firefly-like creature is actually not difficult to catch. After a while, the gauze bag in Ronan's hand was stuffed full. 40, only 40, should be enough. Ronan was hesitating whether to continue, when suddenly at this time, there was a rustling sound of people walking and talking not far away. Ronan immediately became alert and subconsciously wanted to hide back in the treehouse. Unfortunately, he was a step too late. Two figures, one tall and one short, appeared from the woods. With the dim light of the moon and fireflies, it can be seen that they are a man and a woman in long robes, walking and talking side by side, as if they are taking a stroll at night. Ronan's body was frozen on the tree branch, holding the net bag and the gauze bag in his hands, not daring to move. Sweat broke out on his forehead, and his brain was spinning rapidly. Fortunately, the other party only glanced at him lightly, then retracted his gaze, and disappeared into the woods in the blink of an eye. When the two figures disappeared completely, Ronan breathed a sigh of relief, and his tense muscles slowly relaxed. Then he felt extremely depressed. I'm almost like a frightened bird. It's because I'm too weak. Ronan sighed, and didn't want to catch insects anymore. He quickly returned to the tree house with his things. He blew out the candles in the house and hung the gauze bag full of fireflies on the beams of the roof. A simple light bulb was ready. Unfortunately, it can only be used for one night. When the sun rises, all the insects in the bag will die. Ronan stared at the homemade gauze bag for a while, and saw the bright yellow firefly light softly spread over the whole hut like water. Whether it was the lighting effect or the beauty, it was far better than candles. He retracted his gaze with satisfaction and sat down at the oak round table in front of him. At this time, the table was already full of books, all left by his predecessor. Ronan mainly read 4 of them: Basic Meditation, Zero-Order Spells, Rune Literature, Collection of 10 Common Zero-Order Runes, and Basics of Magical Potion Science. These 4 books are his most valuable possessions now. His predecessor almost spent all the magic stones he brought from home to exchange for these 4 books in front of him from the Hoddam Wizard Academy. These 4 books represent knowledge and inheritance, and are also the key to open the door to wizards. A large part of the wizards gathered in the Hoddam Wizard land are students of the Hoddam Wizard Academy. The admission standards of the Hoddam Wizard Academy are not harsh. Basically, as long as you have money to pay tuition, you will be admitted. In the academy, you need to spend money to study, choose courses, attend classes, eat, and stay. Once you have used up all your magic stones, it will invite you out as easily as when you came in. Therefore, there are many students from the Hoddam Wizard Academy, but few students can be truly recognized by the Hoddam Academy. Once you have this honor, it is synonymous with strength and genius. This is not like going to school, but more like a business. Ronan muttered, and then casually opened the black cover of Basic Meditation in front of him. Mental power is the foundation and core of the wizard's power system, and meditation is the main way to improve mental power. Its importance is self-evident. Ronan has tried meditation several times in the past 2 days, but none of them succeeded. Every time he felt a little bit short. He seemed to have not integrated the experience and insights of his predecessor in this part, so he could only start from scratch as a pure novice. Empty your mind, abandon distracting thoughts, and focus your mind on one point. Ronan read the steps described in the book. After finishing reading, he closed the book, closed his eyes, and silently read it several times in his mind, relaxing his mind. When Ronan felt that he was almost done, he got up, drank some water, washed his hands, and washed his face. Then he took off his shoes and sat cross-legged on his small bed. In fact, there is no specific requirement for the body posture when wizards meditate. Lying down or lying on their stomachs is fine. But Ronan tried it and it was easy to fall asleep that way. When he got into bed, the thin blanket under his body was accidentally torn open, revealing a line of small words. The soul is the destination of immortality. Ronan read it out softly, his expression slightly different. This sentence is the opening of basic meditation technique, a famous saying widely circulated in the wizarding world. Its meaning is to warn everyone who embarks on the path of wizards that mental power is the focus of practice, and the pursuit of the immortality of the soul is the real immortality. Now it is engraved on the bedboard to warn himself. Obviously, it was not engraved by the predecessor, because the handwriting looks a bit old. Perhaps it was the previous owner of this cabin, or the previous owner. Ronan started to associate it with the same cabin, the same dim light, and the same bed long ago. A boy about his age sat in the same position, alone, meditating and practicing silently, dreaming that one day he could walk out of the tree house area and enter the academy. After thinking about it, Ronan felt a little brave and motivated. He got inexplicable encouragement and strength from the unexpected handwriting. The sequelae of being frightened twice in the day and night gradually subsided, and his mind was completely settled. Chapter 3 Panel. In the pitch-black void, a white light appeared. The white light slowly rotated. If you draw the trajectory of its rotation, it should be a continuous circle that keeps expanding outward. It's like a mosquito coil that is growing and getting bigger. In this process, there are scattered, colorful light spots from the edge of the void, merging into the trajectory of the white light's rotation. Circle, circle, circle. After who knows how many circles, Ronan opened his eyes. At this moment, Ronan felt that his spirit was particularly vigorous, as if he had a good sleep, woke up, refreshed, his brain was particularly clear, and the speed of his thinking became abnormally fast. Success. Ronan's lips moved slightly, and there was an irrepressible joy on his face. It was indeed successful. He had sensed what was described in basic meditation techniques. It seemed that there was a group of lively and transparent airflow in his brain. It was difficult to describe, but it really existed. That was the so-called mental power. Being able to sense the existence of mental power proved that Ronan's first meditation was very successful, and he had officially entered the door. Thank you. Ronan was in a good mood, and he reached out his hand to touch the line of soul on the bedboard and whispered. The success of this meditation was due to the line of small words under his hand. Ronan planned to find something to clean the dust and dirt accumulated in the indentations of the handwriting tomorrow, and read it every day in the future to alert and encourage himself. Thinking of this, Ronan, who was about to get out of bed and pour a glass of water to moisten his throat, suddenly felt that something seemed to flash quickly in front of his eyes. It was as if a bug suddenly got into his eyes. He blinked hard, trying to squeeze the thing out, but he never thought that the light in the corner of his eyes suddenly twisted a few times, and then a light blue light curtain jumped out. Name: Ronan Damien. Age: 16. Talent: no attribute. Affinity: strength, level 1 wizard apprentice, 86%. Skill: basic meditation, beginner 1/100. Ronan was stunned. He wondered if he was dazzled, and rubbed his eyes hard, but the light curtain in front of him did not move at all. A thought came to his mind, and the light curtain disappeared immediately. When the thought came back, the light curtain appeared again. After repeating this several times, he realized that it was actually controlled by his own mind. Is this the character panel in the game? Is it the golden finger that came with his travel, or is the current world he is in actually an extremely real game world? Ronan thought about it and felt that the previous guess was more reliable. Or he was more inclined to the first guess. Of course, no matter which possibility it was, the result was not important, because he couldn't go back now. What really mattered was how to use the panel in front of him to live well here and make himself live better. After being shocked, Ronan suppressed his inner joy and began to study the many information displayed on the panel. It turns out that I have no attribute affinity. According to the common sense about wizards left by his predecessor, no attribute affinity should mean that there is no benefit in practicing any wizard spell, and accordingly, there is no obstacle. This is actually not a good thing. Because if Ronan is now affinity with fire attribute energy, then it will be easier for him to practice fire spells than ordinary people, and the power of the fire spells he casts will also be improved. Although it is more difficult and less powerful to learn other spells than normal people, this shortcoming can be avoided by choosing the right major. If you choose any spell course at Hoddam Wizard Academy, you can take a free attribute affinity talent test. Unfortunately, after paying the tuition and buying 4 inherited wizard books, My predecessor almost spent all the magic stones on him and had no money to choose spell courses. As a result, Ronan only now knows his attribute affinity talent. It would be a lie to say that he is not disappointed, but he can't choose to restart, so he can only accept it. The strength column on the panel shows Ronan's current realm, a first-level wizard apprentice, and the 86% behind should be the progress in the current realm. Reality once again hit Ronan hard. His predecessor has been in the Hoddam wizard land for half a year. Even though it was difficult to get started because he had to rely on himself to explore without any guidance, after meditating for so long, his mental power was still a long way from the standard of a second-level wizard apprentice, which was enough to show that his talent was really average. I heard that some talented wizard seedlings can increase their mental power to the second level in a few weeks or even a few days after learning meditation. It's really frustrating to compare yourself to others. Ronan now thought of the small words engraved on the bedboard, and felt that the words were full of irony. With such a huge gap in innate talent, is acquired effort really useful? Ronan asked himself self-deprecatingly, inevitably feeling a little discouraged. But when his eyes fell on the panel, he suddenly felt a little hopeful. Maybe. Continue to read down. It seems that there is nothing to see. A bare skill column, only the basic meditation technique he just started is included, and the proficiency is only a pitiful one. No wonder he couldn't feel the memory of his previous life when he tried to meditate before. It turned out that it was directly cleared after crossing. Forget it, it doesn't matter, start from the beginning, start now. At least I am a man with cheats now, practice hard, everything is possible. Ronan cheered himself up. He was full of energy after just meditating, and he didn't want to sleep at all. He simply stayed up all night, flipping through the remaining books while studying the cheats he had just awakened. Unconsciously, the fireflies in the gauze bag above his head stopped flying, and the dim light gradually dimmed. Chirp, the morning light and the sound of birds awakened the sleeping forest. On the tall and dense old oak tree with twisted vines, a gray cabin opened its door with a creak. A boy in a gray robe walked out of the cabin. The boy was of medium build, with slightly curly chestnut hair, and his eyelids and cheeks looked a little swollen. He looked weak and fat, but he was in good spirits. It was Ronan who came out to get some fresh air after a night of hard work. How? Ronan yawned, and poured the urine jar he had been holding for the whole night down the old oak tree through the gap between its branches. Then he went back to the house, got another smaller pottery jar, and began to collect the morning dew that had accumulated on the leaves. In fact, Ronan was not very sleepy. He had studied wizard books all night, and when he felt sleepy, he went to bed to meditate. Although it could not completely replace the effect of sleeping, it was much better than staying up all night. It was just that Ronan always felt stuffy and aching in his chest. His hands and feet were a little weak, and he almost fell off the tree when collecting the morning dew. He felt that his body seemed to be a little weaker than yesterday. It might be because he was hungry after not eating all night. Or maybe, was there something wrong with his body? Exclamation mark. Chapter 4 Erosion. Excessive meditation causes a large amount of energy particles in the body to be stagnant and unable to be discharged, which then erodes the body organs and causes varying degrees of damage to the body's functions. Ronan looked through the memories of his previous life and finally found the cause of his symptom. Meditation too much can also harm the body. His face suddenly became a little ugly. He now finally understood why the physique of this body was so poor. He originally thought that it was because his previous life was born as a noble young master, and he did not know how to restrain himself at a young age, and was hollowed out by alcohol and sex. Now it seems that the main reason is that he was eroded by energy particles for a long time. Because of poor qualifications, I have to spend more time on meditation than others. A large amount of energy particles accumulate in my body, and I can't afford to buy potions to dissolve them, so my body is getting worse and worse, and I am even worse than an ordinary person. Ronan looked gloomy. The memories emerged were fragmentary and incomplete, and he had not started meditation before, so he had never noticed this. Now looking back, he found that many wizards actually have the problem of their bodies being eroded by energy particles. But it is not taken seriously. Or it was because of the sentence at the beginning of basic meditation, the soul is the destination of immortality. For wizards, the ultimate goal of practice is to pursue the so-called eternal existence of the soul. Apart from that, there is nothing that cannot be abandoned. This also includes their own physical body. Moreover, when a wizard apprentice is promoted to a formal wizard, the physical body will be slightly enhanced. Moreover, the body can be transformed through spells later. No wonder the wizards this guy has seen in his memory are either very old or ugly and weird. Is this the current situation of low-level wizards? Ronan felt powerless for a while. He is not a person who pays much attention to appearance, but he can accept that his external image is a little worse, but he can't accept that he has a 60-year-old body at the age of 16. If he continues to practice at this rate, it will not be long before he has to rely on a cane to walk. He probably can't climb trees anymore, so he has to eat, drink, defecate and urinate in trees every day. That's too fucked up. Ronan imagined in his mind the scene of himself trembling and holding onto a tree branch while peeing in his pants in midair. He couldn't bear to look at it. To solve the problem of energy particle erosion, it is actually very simple. One is to control the frequency of meditation. Reduce the number of meditations and increase the interval between two meditations. After one meditation, wait until the body slowly discharges the excess energy particles before the next meditation, and the situation will be much better. But this will undoubtedly greatly slow down the speed of cultivation, making Ronan's already terrible talent even worse. Another way is to take magic potions. But this method is even more impractical. A bottle of the cheapest magic potion costs more than 10 low-level magic stones. With this money, Ronan might as well use it to buy auxiliary potions that can directly enhance mental strength. If you don't want to slow down the speed of cultivation and don't want to spend money, you can only practice. Ronan exhaled a short breath and said sullenly, "From now on, physical exercise will be officially included in the daily practice items. This is the dumbest way. Make your body strong, and then fight those invading energy particles to the end. Poor people can only rely on themselves." After half an hour of busy work, Ronan collected a full jar of morning dew. This thing is a relatively easy to obtain wizard material. After reading a few books last night, Ronan began to collect it consciously. Put the jar full of morning dew in a cool place. Ronan plucked a handful of sage leaves, crushed them and stuffed them into his mouth, brushed his teeth hastily, and then began to prepare his breakfast. Breakfast is also very simple, a small pot of multigrain wheat porridge. There is no side dish to go with the porridge, so I added a little rock honey left by my predecessor, who knows how long it has been stored. Unexpectedly, it tastes good. Ronan squatted at the door of the cabin with a bowl in his hand and drank the porridge hoo-hoo, and opened his character panel by the way. Name, Ronan Damien, age 16, talent, no attribute affinity, strength, level 1 wizard apprentice, 86%, skill, basic meditation, 5 out of 100 for beginners. In one night, his strength progressed at all, but his meditation proficiency increased by 5 points. Ronan was no longer as excited and happy as he was last night. The main reason was that he had studied this panel overnight and found that it seemed to have no other function except to display his practice status in real time. I guess I still have to rely on my own liver. Ronan was a little depressed. He quickly finished his breakfast, washed the dishes, and then climbed down the tree along the long vine in front of the house. Now is a good time for morning exercise. The task of strengthening his physical fitness is urgent, and Ronan takes action now. He planned his morning jogging route. Follow this path straight ahead, turn right under the 4th oak tree, and go around to the left when you see a quagmire. If you encounter danger, return immediately. Ronan felt that he was almost there, so he ran slowly along the forest path. The road in the woods is not easy to walk on, with ups and downs, and sometimes you will encounter stones and dead trees blocking the road. But it is just right for exercise. Ronan ran for a while, and his body began to sweat, and his breathing became much faster. In fact, if you want to exercise, the grass by the lake is the best. But since the wizard fight yesterday, Ronan has not planned to go there for the time being. The view on the grass is wide, and if you encounter anything, there is no place to hide. The robe on his body is soaked with sweat, and it is very uncomfortable to stick to the skin wetly. The fat sleeves and helm are also in the way. Ronan thought that he should change his clothes when he comes back. He remembered that there was a set of light hunting clothes in the change of clothes left by his predecessor, which is more suitable for activities in the forest. I've gotten to this point, why do I still need to pay attention to wizard etiquette? Wearing wizard robes doesn't necessarily make me a wizard. Ronan was so tired that he was panting and his hair roots were wet. He pushed aside a bush and saw water bubbling out of a tree hole under a big tree in front of him, so he gradually slowed down his pace. I've run about 7 or 8 miles. Ronan didn't know for sure, so he took out a golden pocket watch from his pocket and checked the time. It had been nearly an hour and a half since he left the treehouse. Several places on his body were accidentally scratched by branches, leaving blood marks, which were hot and painful after being soaked with sweat. Fortunately, there are no large beasts in this area, otherwise I really wouldn't dare to go so deep. Ronan thought as he walked towards the tree hole in front of him where water was bubbling. When he arrived in front of the tree hole, he scooped up a handful of water with his hand and tasted it twice, and found that it tasted quite clear and sweet. After a simple scrubbing, Ronan took off his shoes and soaked his feet in. Chapter 5, Energy Missile. It's so rare that there is such a water source here. Ronan sighed happily while soaking his feet. Remember the location, I can go here every time I run in the future. He usually went to the lake to get water, and filled 2 large water tanks at a time, which could be used for 3 to 5 days. Rustle. A sound suddenly came from his ears. Ronan turned his head quickly and saw a slightly shaking bush. Maybe it was a small animal that ran away in fear. Ronan didn't care. But thinking about it, he felt a little worried. He dried his feet, put on his shoes, and walked slowly along the shaking bush. He pushed aside a few low bushes covered with red berries and walked forward for more than 10 meters. A dark green treehouse appeared in Ronan's sight. Is there someone living here? Ronan was shocked and stopped quickly, and then slowly returned along the same path. It is common to run into other wizards in the treehouse area. Ronan had avoided the signs of people living on the road before. He didn't expect that this place is so remote, and there are people living here. I can't come next time. I have to modify the route a little. Ronan made a decision and left in a hurry. After sweating a lot, he returned to his residence and took a short rest. It was not yet 9 o'clock in the morning. Ronan's homework was still going on. Meditation is the only way for me to improve my strength at this stage. The book says that every time I meditate after consuming my mental power, the effect will be greatly improved. Ronan sat under the oak tree in his home, chewing wild fruits picked from the forest while studying the meditation book in his hand. The meditation book mentioned that the human soul is like a container, and mental power is the water in this container. Drain the water in the container first, and in the process of refilling it, the volume of the container will be significantly increased. The key is how to quickly consume mental power. All wizard activities require mental power. The more common ones are alchemy, enchantment, forging, and rune engraving. The biggest consumption is naturally casting spells. Ronan put down the meditation book in his hand and picked up another wizard book with a black leather cover, 0 order spells. This book was also obtained by the predecessor from Hoddam College. Although it is called a complete book, it actually records the release methods of 5 0-level spells. They are Fireball, Ice Ball, Energy Missile, Charge Weapon, and Detection. Ronan looked at the introduction of the 5 0-level spells and perked up. His biggest problem now is that his combat power is weak. Oh no, to be precise, he has no combat power. Learning a combat spell is urgently needed at this stage. Ronan read the introduction of the 5 spells carefully, and after weighing the pros and cons, he finally chose the spell, Energy Missile, as the main learning goal at present. He has a non-attribute affinity physique, so, Fireball, and Ice Ball, which obviously have energy attribute tendencies, are naturally not the first choice. Charge Weapon needs to be used with weapons, and Detection is an auxiliary spell, so the long-range spell, Energy Missile, with no attribute requirements has become the most suitable choice for him. The principle of releasing Energy Missile is very simple, that is, through spells and hand gestures, the mental power and the free energy particles in nature can resonate with a spell. But it is not easy to operate in practice. Wooloo, Babaki. Ronan stumbled over a short spell. Each syllable of the spell needed to be matched with a corresponding hand gesture. Ronan was always busy with the spell and ignored the hand gestures. He did the hand gestures correctly but forgot to chant the spell. After practicing for several hours, Ronan was sweating and his mouth was dry, but he still failed to successfully release Energy Missile. Damn, this is too difficult. Ronan looked at the thick spell book, wondering if he had practiced wrong somewhere, or if he had not yet mastered the real trick. In fact, in this case, it is best to find someone to guide you. Hoddam College provides such services. As long as you sign up for the Energy Missile spell class, there will naturally be an experienced old wizard who will break down and explain the release techniques of this spell to you in detail, so that you can avoid a lot of detours. But Ronan is not poor. 10 low-level magic stones would simply cost him his life. I'd better practice on my own. Ronan sighed and continued to practice hard. He didn't even have time to eat lunch. When he was tired of practicing, he would meditate for a while. He practiced until the sun was setting, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Wulubabazirdamu. A series of strange and difficult syllables were accurately uttered from Ronan's mouth, and his 10 fat white fingers also matched the landing points of the syllables and quickly changed into various gestures, without any error. When the spell and gestures were all completed successfully, Ronan intuitively heard a hum in his ears. Immediately afterwards, the lively and transparent mental power in his mind was immediately drained away. The next second, a piece of air in front of him was distorted, and a colorful ball of light the size of a ping-pong ball appeared out of thin air. With a slight change of mind, he shot out with a whoosh. It landed on an unlucky oak tree in front of him, and with a bang, a large mass of wood chips and debris exploded on the trunk. It worked. Ronan was a little slow to react to this sudden success. A few seconds later, the huge joy and sense of accomplishment enveloped him like a tide. It worked. Ronan rushed forward excitedly and looked at the landing point of the energy missile. A deep flaky pit remained on the oak tree, which was as thick as a person. This power is greater than a shotgun. Ronan looked again and again, and was amazed. When he looked away, he couldn't help but have many complicated thoughts in his heart. Wizard. At this moment, he can be regarded as a real wizard. He possessed extraordinary power that ordinary people could not reach. There was also something called confidence in his heart. Exhaling a breath of turbid air, Ronan's heart unexpectedly became very calm. Instead of dwelling on the joy of success, he continued to practice. With Ronan's current mental power as a first-level wizard apprentice, it was almost exhausted after releasing 2 energy missiles. And the time required to release 2 energy missiles was no more than 2 minutes. The purpose of quickly consuming mental power was also successfully achieved, and everything seemed to be slowly getting on track. After a casual dinner, Ronan was still practicing spells as fireflies rose in the forest. Somehow, since the first successful release of energy missiles, the subsequent practice has become unusually smooth. Ronan's chanting speed has become faster and faster, and the coordinated gestures have become more and more silky. There has been almost no spell failure, only once because of mental fatigue and severe fluctuations in mental power, resulting in the incomplete casting of the spell. Late at night, Ronan dragged his tired body into the treehouse, lay directly on the small bed as soon as he entered the door, and clicked on his character panel. Name: Ronan Damien. Age: 16. Talent: no attribute. Affinity: Strength, Level 1 Wizard Apprentice, 88%. Skills: Basic Meditation, 11 over 100 for beginners. Energy Missile, 14 out of 100 for beginners. Chapter 6 Level 2. Seeing the panel, Ronan's spirits lifted slightly. The effect of high-intensity meditation was still significant. His mental strength increased by 2%, and he was closer to the realm of a second-level apprentice. The words, Energy Missile, appeared in the skill column, and his proficiency had reached entry 14 out of 100. It feels so good to see concrete rewards for hard work. Ronan couldn't help but sigh. Now lying on the bed, emptying his mind and body, looking back on today's hard training, Ronan slowly noticed something strange. He felt that the process of practicing energy missile was too smooth. According to the memory of his predecessor, it was normal for many novice wizards to spend several weeks or even a month to successfully master the first 0-level spell. But he did it in just one day. This was without any guidance, and he had to rely on his own exploration. Am I a one-in-a-million genius in learning magic? Ronan shook his head, thinking about it, and felt that the reason might be attributed to the panel. This character panel seemed to have some magical effect that could solidify every bit of his progress. In the process of practicing energy missile, he almost really did it. He would not make the same mistake again after making it once. This became more and more obvious after he got started with energy missile. Every time he finished casting a spell, some fragmentary insights would naturally arise from his heart, becoming the nourishment for him to cast a better spell next time. The same is true for meditation. Ronan's time in meditation is getting shorter and shorter, and the effect of meditation has also improved significantly. If it's really as I thought, then I'll be awesome, Ronan murmured while lying on the bed. There was no light on, and the moonlight shone in from the window. He looked at the dark roof, and felt sleepy like a tide, and fell asleep unknowingly. Ronan was too tired. After all, he couldn't completely replace sleep with meditation now. In the following days, Ronan began to be completely self-disciplined. He got up early every morning to exercise, then practiced spells and meditation, and exercised for 2 hours in the afternoon, and continued until late at night. The natural sleep time every day was less than 4 hours. Unknowingly, half a month had passed. Wooloo, Bazidamu. A low incantation sounded in the quiet oak forest. The airflow in the forest suddenly changed, and a small mottled light ball the size of a ping-pong ball suddenly appeared and quickly sank into a bush. Bang! A violent explosion sounded, and something seemed to whine. With countless broken leaves and soil splashing, the bush was immediately cleared, leaving only a mess on the ground. Huh? In the distance, Ronan, who had just released an energy missile, looked strange, lowered his head, and seemed to be thinking about something. I just reduced 2 spell syllables when casting the spell, and made fewer gestures. It was still released successfully. Ronan clicked on his character panel. Sure enough, on the skill bar of the panel, behind the skill icon of energy missile, the original entry-level words have become proficient 1/200. The skill proficiency level has been improved. Ronan was happy, but he was not surprised. The proficiency of energy missile has been stuck at entry 99 out of 100 for a day or two, and this upgrade is a natural result. After the proficiency is improved, the spell syllables and gestures are simplified, and the casting time is shortened by several seconds. After reaching proficiency in energy missile, Ronan felt that his understanding of this spell has become much deeper. The essence of spell release is actually the resonance of energy particles driven by mental power. Whether it is spells or gestures, they are just ways to help resonance be achieved better. If Ronan can fully master the rhythm of this resonance one day, he can directly skip the lengthy spells and cumbersome gestures, and it is not impossible to cast spells instantly. The casting time of the skill after the upgrade has been shortened to about 7 seconds or less than 8 seconds, which is much faster than the beginning, but the reading time is still long. If you fight with a melee profession, this gap is enough for others to launch several attacks. Ronan shook his head and walked towards the landing point of the energy missile. Just now, there was a large pit 2 meters wide and half a meter deep at the place where the energy missile hit. A bloody wild elk was lying in the pit, and it was no longer in a complete state. Ronan squatted down, pulled out the dagger he carried with him from his waist, and began to cut some edible parts from the dead elk. After successfully mastering the means of attack, he was finally able to carry out some simple hunting activities in a small area around him, and meat dishes finally appeared in his daily menu. Compared with the energy missiles released at the beginning, the energy missiles Ronan fired now were much faster and more powerful. Part of the reason was that the skill level of energy missiles had been upgraded. Another part of the reason was that a few days ago, Ronan successfully advanced to the level of a second-level wizard apprentice. Name: Ronan Damien. Age: 16. Talent: no attribute affinity. Strength: level 2 wizard apprentice, 3%. Skills: basic meditation, 87 out of 100 for beginners. Energy missile, 1/200 for proficiency. After being promoted to level 2, Ronan's mental power increased significantly. Now his total mental power is enough for him to release energy missile 4 times in a row with some extra. If this trend continues, his energy missile proficiency will increase faster and faster. As his mental power is depleted, the number of meditations he needs will also increase. Just like a snowball, he has unknowingly embarked on his own fast track of cultivation. It's just that the energy particles are eroding my body faster too. Ronan frowned and subconsciously reached out to touch his chest. During this period of physical exercise and improved diet, his physical fitness has improved a lot, and his complexion has gradually improved, but the dull pain in his chest every morning after waking up has not disappeared, but has become more severe. Ronan thinks his lungs may have been damaged by erosion. I have to find a way to stop it. The benefits of my training are too low. It would be great if I could get a night training method, which is better than me training blindly like this. Ronan remembered that when his predecessor was in his own earldom, he had many knights under his command. The most common feature of these knights is that they are physically strong, far beyond ordinary people. It's a pity that his predecessor didn't train with them at that time. Thinking of this, Ronan put away the dagger. He stood up and walked towards home with the fresh venison he had cut. After a few steps, The bushes and leaves in front of him swayed, and a light sound of footsteps came towards him. Ronan narrowed his eyes, stopped quietly, and curled his tongue in his mouth, ready to chant and cast spells at any time. A few seconds later, a figure appeared in his field of vision. It was a middle-aged man in a dark green robe, holding a black kettle in his hand. Seeing Ronan, he was obviously startled. But soon, his face calmed down. His eyes passed over Ronan, lingered for a moment on the bloody venison in Ronan's hand, then he made way a little and walked quickly towards him with an expressionless face. Until the two passed by each other, neither Ronan nor the middle-aged wizard spoke. Huh? Looking at the disappearing back of the middle-aged wizard, Ronan let out a breath, and was quite satisfied with his performance just now. Compared with half a month ago, he would no longer run away like a frightened rabbit at the slightest sound of a disturbance. He had courage. It was given by the strength of a second-level wizard apprentice and the zero-level spell, Energy Missile. In fact, Ronan also discovered that the real treehouse area was not as scary as he imagined. Although the treehouse area was in the wild, most of the wizards who chose to live here were like him, low-level wizard apprentices with low strength who could not afford the magic stones required to live in the town. He was afraid. Others might be more afraid than him. Most wizards cherish their lives and will take the initiative to avoid conflicts, except for some crazy desperados with abnormal brains. During the past half-month, as the scope of his morning exercises expanded, Ronan gradually got to know several neighbors living near his home. He had even met several of them, and the middle-aged wizard he had just met was one of them. Chapter 7 Market. In the dim cabin, Ronan squatted in a corner of the wall, fumbled in the cracks for a while, and pulled out a palm-sized black cloth bag. He walked to the table and emptied the contents of his pocket onto the table. They were some green bean-sized, fine crystals of different colors. 1, 2, 3. Ronan carefully counted the fine crystals on the table, a total of 76. 76 pieces of magic stone. This is all the money he has now. There are still a lot of secular gold coins and gems, but in the wizard land, these things can't be spent. The pocket watch shows that it is 9:50 in the morning, and it is still early. Today Ronan is going to the town living area of the wizard land to buy some materials and daily necessities for the next practice. Ronan changed into a light and convenient hunting suit, and put on his wizard robe on the outside to cover it up. The dagger he usually used to cut meat was carefully tucked at his waist. The dagger was left by his predecessor, and it was very sharp. Although he didn't have any close combat skills, he might find it useful. Water bag, dry food. Finally, the cloth bag containing 76 pieces of magic stone, which he kept close to his body. Before leaving, he took a large bag of dried and salted meat that he had not eaten during the hunting. After getting ready, Ronan locked the door of the hut, slid down the long vine to the bottom, and then chose a direction he had never walked before and quickly disappeared into the jungle. The entire Hoddam wizard land is located in a huge basin, surrounded by dense and vast primeval forests. Ronan stood on a high slope and looked at the Hoddam Wizard Academy. He could only see a white mist, surrounded by a prosperous town, which looked like a circle of gray and black surrounding the white mist from a distance. Ronan opened the water bag and took a sip, and a thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. In order to have less contact with people, his predecessor chose to live in a tree house far away from the town, so it would take some time to walk there. After walking for nearly 2 hours, Ronan finally approached the town. The rugged forest path under his feet became open and flat, and more people could be seen in front of him. Most of them were wizard apprentices like him, and the wide robes were basically standard. "My lord, do you need an attendant? You only need 10 low-level magic stones to get my 10 years of loyalty. My lord, I will be your most reliable guard." When passing a small square in front of the town, a group of people rushed towards Ronan. Most of them were strong and carried huge swords behind them. These were adventurers who practiced a way of knights. Ronan wanted to contact them to see if he could learn the authentic knight breathing method to relieve the problem of his body being eroded by energy particles. But thinking that he only had so much money on him, and there were still many things he needed to buy on this trip, these guys dared to mix in the wizard land as mortals, and they were probably all smart people. It was hard to say how many magic stones they would ask for when they opened their mouths. So he declined all of them. Walking through the square, there is a dilapidated earth wall made of gray stones, and inside is the living area of the town. It is said that these earth walls were left many years ago, when the Hoddam gathering place had just taken shape and there were not as many wizards as now. At that time, there were many magical beasts living in the forest, and there would often be beast tides. When the magical beasts in the forest around the gathering place were expelled and the beast tide disappeared, Hoddam gradually developed to its current scale. Ronan entered the town and there were 3 roads in front of him. The middle one led directly to the Hoddam Wizard Academy, the one on the left led to the Dwarf Market, and the one on the right was a comprehensive market spontaneously formed by wandering wizards. The road on the left was obviously better repaired. Like Ronan, wizards who entered the town basically turned a corner and went to the right. Ronan wanted to see what the legendary dwarves looked like, but from a distance, it seemed that there were people guarding the door of the Dwarf Market, and ordinary wizards were not allowed to enter at all. While Ronan was standing there, a group of people were talking and laughing as they walked down the middle of the road, heading straight for the Dwarf Market. All of them were wearing brand new and beautiful wizard robes, and their hands were wearing rings with obvious energy particle fluctuations. They looked dignified and proud, like the pride of heaven. Ronan looked at this group of academicians with envy, and turned to go to the Wizard Market. The Wizard Market was quite different from what Ronan had imagined. It was just an ordinary street with not many people, but the sanitary conditions were worrying. He could even see animal carcasses and feces in the gutter on the side of the road. There were all kinds of low buildings on both sides of the street, most of which had no signs. If you want to know what the shops sell, you mainly rely on experience and observation. Ronan walked and stopped along the way. He had a total of 76 magic stone grains of change on him, so he didn't dare to enter any of the more impressive shops. He only dared to stand at the door and look inside. Damn it, a few kilograms of flour cost me 5 magic stones, why don't you just go and rob? Ronan walked out of a bakery cursing. Tired of eating whole grains, he wanted to change his taste, but he didn't expect that what he was eating now was already the cheapest food in the entire settlement. Forget it, let's eat meat as the staple food in the future. Vegetables are readily available in the forest anyway. Ronan put a cloth bag of flour on his waist, a little depressed. He really felt that he couldn't afford to live in the wizard land with soaring prices. The main reason was that the wizards didn't produce anything. The food sold in the wizard land was basically transported from the secular kingdom. The food itself was not valuable, but the transportation cost was very expensive. Ronan was so distressed that he spent another magic stone grain, but he only bought some necessary seasonings for cooking. So far, he has no means to earn magic stones. The dozens of magic stone grains on him are really one less. He originally thought that since prices in the wizard land were high, the dried animal meat he brought should be worth some money. But he didn't expect that no one would look down on it. The wizard land was not short of ordinary meat, but what was lacking was the meat of magical beasts with either wonderful texture or special effects. Ronan had never seen what a magical beast looked like, so he would have to go deep into the forest to have a chance to meet one. Continuing forward along the street of shops, Ronan began to see wizard stalls set up on the spot. Then there were more and more people. At the end, all he could see were stalls of various types, with no trace of shops at all. Fresh fire lizard blood, the forging and enchanting effects are all top-notch, and now a bottle only costs 5 low-grade magic stones. Pseudo-zero level intermediate attack magic tools. Double runes, 90% new, big sale. Ghost face flower seeds, blue songgrass flower hearts, all the potion materials you want are here. The streets were crowded with people, and the sounds of hawking and bargaining were endless. Some of the wizards who came and went were dressed in bright clothes, while others were in tattered robes, even patched up, even worse than Ronan. In this bustling scene, Ronan also became relaxed, not as nervous and restrained as before in the shopping street. Although he didn't recognize most of the things on the stalls in front of him, and he couldn't understand most of the hawking sounds that came one after another, this did not prevent him from gradually blending in. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Runes. So this is a wizard's magic tool. Ronan stared at a short sword that would emit fire. The flames on the sword were so cool that he couldn't take his eyes off it. This thing is the legendary wizard's exclusive equipment, magic props, or magic tools for short. Different types of magic tools have different degrees of amplification effects on wizards. Some can easily double a wizard's combat power. A wizard with magic tools is completely different from a wizard with bare hands. However, any magic tool is extremely precious and is not something Ronan can afford at this stage. If the plan goes well, Ronan secretly made up his mind, I must buy one when I go back. Reluctantly leaving the stall selling magic tools, Ronan continued to stroll around. Ronan has his own routine when he strolls around. Whenever he sees someone bargaining in front of a stall, he will sneak up and stand aside to listen. When he has a good understanding of what the bargain goods are and their corresponding value, he will quietly walk away. After half a day of strolling, my knowledge has really improved a lot. I have already shown a tendency to transform from a pure novice to a semi-novice in the wizarding world. While strolling, Ronan's eyes suddenly stopped at a stall. There were not many people in front of this stall, and most wizards would just take a glance and leave. The stall owner was a middle-aged man with black hair in his 40s. He did not have any intention of actively soliciting customers, and basically sat lazily on a chair. The stall mainly sold pieces of pigeon egg-sized stones, each of which was engraved with different patterns, and occasionally flashed, with a hint of mystery. Ronan's eyes flashed, and he walked up calmly, picked up a piece of stone engraved with patterns on the stall, and asked the stall owner, "What's the price of this?" The stall owner pinched Ronan with his eyelids and lazily quoted a price. Ronan put the stone down, changed to another one, and asked again. After several times, the stall owner finally showed his impatience. "Do you want to buy it or not?" "Yes." Ronan put down the stone in his hand in a huff, and changed the subject. "Give me some universal powder first. 2 pieces of magic stone for 1 bag, take as many as you want." The stall owner pointed unhappily to the side, where there were fist-sized cloth bags piled up one after another. Ronan walked over, picked up a bag, opened it and looked at it, and confirmed that it was correct. He put down 4 pieces of magic stone and took 2 bags by himself. After collecting them, he asked the stall owner, "Do you have any blank rune stones?" The stall owner raised his half-lying body a little, and looked at Ronan with a smile. "Yes, 5 magic stone grains apiece. If you want more, I can give you a little discount." Ronan silently calculated the balance in his purse, thought for a while and said, 3 pieces apiece, I want 22 pieces. Divine gold. The stall owner rolled his eyes and said unhappily, "You are bargaining so hard for a business that costs less than 1 magic stone? It's just the price of 5 pieces, you can buy it or not." Ronan tried to quote the price twice, but the other party showed no sign of relenting. In the end, he even turned his face away and didn't bother to look at him again. Ronan wanted to look elsewhere, but when he thought that this was the only store selling rune stones on the street, he gave up. "Then give me 13 pieces." Ronan sighed and almost emptied his wallet. The stall owner took Ronan's magic stone fragments, and his attitude changed slightly. He stood up and walked to the back of the stall to take out a bag. When he handed it to Ronan, he said with a slightly playful expression, "Little brother, do you want to learn rune engraving and become a rune master?" Ronan said There was nothing to hide. Only rune engraving would use universal powder and blank rune stones. The stall owner in front of him was obviously a real rune master, so he knew it very well. Self-taught. Self-taught. Just learned. Just learned. The stall owner looked at the things in Ronan's hand, and said with a strange expression, "You don't think you can become a self-taught person with these materials? Is it impossible?" Ronan blinked. "Huh." The stall owner laughed, and directly pulled over a wizard who was setting up a stall next to him, pointed at Ronan and said to him, "Mafuli, listen to what this kid is saying. He told me that he plans to use 13 blank rune stones to become a rune master." The stall owner's tone was exaggerated and artificial, and the wizard he was pulling looked at Ronan coldly with an idiotic look. Ronan felt his self-esteem was insulted, and just wanted to fight back, but he never thought that the stall owner in front of him suddenly picked up 2 blank runestones and slapped them into his arms with a slap. "Boy, I'll give you 2 more to make it even. Go back and practice well. When you succeed, come to me and I'll give you another bag." "Oh no, 10 bags of blank runestones. Really?" Ronan was stunned for a moment, and subconsciously confirmed. The stall owner didn't say anything, just looked at him and laughed loudly. "What are you laughing at? Have you ever heard of not looking down on the poor or young?" At the town gate, Ronan walked out with a lot of bags in his hands, looking angry. But when he thought that he got 2 more blank rune stones just by being laughed at, and earned 10 magic stone fragments for nothing, his mood didn't seem so bad anymore. Bang! Ronan threw the only magic stone fragment left in his body into the air like a coin, caught it, looked at it for a while, and then threw it into the empty purse. The seed of wealth. I hope it will grow more and more from now on. Ronan sighed and put his purse in his pocket. He originally planned to buy a book on the training method of the knight in the mortal world at the market, but after a round, he found that this thing didn't seem to be cheap, so he had to give up. The speed of the return trip was much slower than the time when he came, mainly because he brought too many things. As the sun was setting, Ronan finally returned to his treehouse. After checking the mark left before leaving and confirming that no one had broken into his house when he was not at home, Ronan carried his things into the hut. After a hasty dinner, he caught dozens of fireflies to make a new lamp. In the quiet treehouse, the fireflies were like water. Ronan sat at the oak table and carefully read the wizard inheritance book that introduced runes. Runes are an extremely important part of the wizard's power system. The creation of runes came from ancient times. The creator was a legendary wizard with profound knowledge and amazing talent. The emergence of runes greatly solved the drawbacks of wizards' long casting time and complicated and cumbersome casting preparations, lowered the threshold for casting a large number of spells, and directly created an extremely glorious era of wizard magic tools. Every rune is the crystallization of the wisdom and efforts of the wizard who created it. With every sunrise and sunset, in some corner of the world, at least one rune is created, and at least one rune is quietly forgotten and buried. The level of the rune determines the level of the enchanted tool. A high-level and rare rune can lay the foundation for the inheritance of a school. It is a supreme opportunity that countless wizards will go crazy for and fight for. Ronan schemed through the long introduction about the origin of runes at the beginning of the book, and at 1/3 of the way through the book, he finally caught the point he wanted to see. Chapter 9, Cleaning. Runes cannot be used directly, they need to be engraved on the tools. Thus, the professions of tool enchanters and rune engravers were born. Ronan was excited when he saw this. He was going to study the profession of rune engraver. Generally speaking, to make a tool, you need to forge the prototype of the tool with materials first, and then engrave the runes that the maker wants on the core of the tool to give it power. But if you engrave it directly, if you make a mistake in the middle, the whole tool will be damaged, wasting materials in vain. So the usual steps are that the rune master will engrave the runes on the rune stone first, and then the enchanter will enchant the tool with the rune stone engraved with the corresponding runes. In this way, even if the enchantment fails, only the rune stone will be lost, and the tool itself will not be affected. The current major professional skills in the wizarding world are alchemy, forging, enchantment, and runes. Although rune engraving is ranked at the bottom, once learned, it is enough for the practitioner to live a more comfortable life than ordinary wizards. Ronan chose rune engraving mainly because it has the lowest threshold and the lowest learning cost. This was also the idea of his predecessor. He flipped through most of the wizard book in his hand, and finally found the specific content about rune engraving. The book Runeology, collection of 10 common zero-order runes in Ronan's hand, introduced a total of 10 common zero-order rune engraving methods. These 10 commonly used zero-order runes are respectively, absorb light, clean, shining, conduction, solid, sharp, protection, swiftness, great strength, and sober. Ronan had already made a preliminary understanding of the prices of most of the runes at the stall where he bought blank rune stones during the day. The 3 runes, absorb light, clean, and shining, are low-level runes at tier 0, with the lowest price, and are generally only 1 or 2 magic stones. Among the 4 intermediate runes at tier 0, conduction, solidity, sharpness, and protection, the protection rune is the most valuable, starting at 5 low-level magic stones. As for the 3 runes, swiftness, strength, and clear, they are usually used on jewelry tools such as rings and necklaces, and are high-level runes at tier 0. Among them, the clear rune is the most valuable, and can enhance the effect of meditation during training, focus the mind during battle, increase the success rate of spellcasting, and resist some spiritual spell attacks. The price is more than 10 low-level magic stones. These are the most common and common universal runes at tier 0. If they are of the same level as rarer spell runes, the price will be much higher. Ronan remembered the flaming dagger he saw at the market, which was definitely enchanted with some rare fire spell runes. These 15 blank runestones, even if I can only successfully engrave one of the most common and cheapest runes, it will be enough to make back the money. Oh no, it should be 20. Ronan quickly stood up and rummaged through the utility box in the corner of the hut, and finally found a pile of rune stones and a palm-sized knife. The things were naturally left by his predecessor. There were a total of 40 rune stones, of which 35 were broken and scrapped. The knife was a special engraving knife for rune engraving, worth 10 magic stone grains. It was the cheapest and most useless rune engraving knife, and it could only be said to be barely usable, without any additional bonus effect. 20 blank runes, 1 successful rune, it should be possible. Ronan was not a fool. The face of the stall owner who sold him blank rune stones during the day, full of teasing and mockery, was still vivid in his mind. He knew without thinking that it would be hopeless to practice engraving with only a few blank rune stones. But he no longer had extra magic stones to buy the second batch of training materials, and these 20 blank rune stones were his only hope. If that didn't work, he would have to find another way. Of course, Ronan was not completely without confidence. His ability to solidify and improve his character panel was the reason why he dared to challenge the Rune Master. If he could do it as smoothly as when he practiced Energy Missile, Ronan would shake his head, put aside the distracting thoughts in his mind, and began to focus on the present. After repeatedly weighing the difficulty of engraving and the value of runes, Ronan finally chose the clean rune among the 3 0-level low-level runes as the first object he was going to practice. The clean rune originated from the 0-level spell, Clean Spell, which can remove dust, absorb water, and remove dirt. It is one of the standard runes for wizard robes. The robe Ronan was wearing was not a robe at all, but the material was slightly special, more resistant to dirt than ordinary clothes, and it was not enchanted with any rune effects. The real wizard robe enchanted with cleanliness has a built-in cleaning function. Even if he wears it for several months without changing it, it will still be clean and fresh without any dirt. The first step of rune engraving is to completely memorize the shape of the entire rune in your mind. This is very important. Runes are the crystallization of the wizard's wisdom and hard work. After a lot of optimization and improvement, every detail has its unique intention and function. A slight deviation may not play its due effect. This step is hard work and requires rote memorization. There is no shortcut. Ronan spent a whole night and finally engraved the shape of the cleanliness rune, which looks like a bent broom, firmly in his mind. Gurgle gurgle. In the early morning, the door of the treehouse was open. Ronan stood in the house, and the boiling pot on the stove in front of him was cooking his breakfast today. After buying flour yesterday, Ronan wanted to make some noodles for himself. I don't know what went wrong. The rolled noodles fell apart as soon as they were put into the pot, and after a while they became a pot of paste. But the taste was quite fragrant. Ronan didn't care, just sprinkled some seasoning in it and ate it. You can move on to the next step of practice. Ronan directly held the small pot and squatted on the branch at the door of the treehouse, slurping the paste while thinking about his next plan. After remembering the appearance of the rune, the next thing to do is to copy the painting. When the painting is familiar, practice carving it with a carving knife. Finally, you can really try to engrave it. Ronan doesn't think he will be a genius in the field of rune engraving. He can't skip any of these necessary steps. Life has become regular again. Exercise, meditation, spell practice, and now a rune research. Ronan's daily routine is full. Although he is exhausted every day, it makes him feel a kind of fulfillment that he hasn't experienced for a long time. The last time I felt this way, it seems to be when I was preparing for the college entrance examination in my last life. Chapter 10 Mastery. Bang! With a muffled sound, a cloud of white dust rose up from the treehouse. In the dense smoke and dust, Ronan walked out and patted the stone dust on his robe expressionlessly. It seemed that this was not the first time that a similar situation had happened. Failed again. Ronan waited until the smoke and dust in the hut had cleared, walked in, and looked at the only 3 blank rune stones left on the makeshift workbench. The corners of his eyes twitched slightly. At this time, it had been almost a month since he began to study rune engraving. 3 days ago, he began to formally try to engrave the clean rune on the blank runestone, but he had engraved and destroyed 17 blank rune stones in a row, but still failed. It was just a little bit short. Ronan recalled the experience of failure just now. He had almost completed 97% of the entire rune engraving, and the entire clean rune had already appeared on the stone, but he failed because he didn't control the last few cuts. The energy particles even ran away out of control, causing the entire rune stone to explode. After all, My strength is not good enough. At the end, I felt that my mental and physical strength could not keep up. Ronan took a towel and patted it on his face, wiped the fatigue between his eyebrows, and analyzed the reasons for his failure. Rune engraving is an extremely energy-consuming task, because the whole process of engraving requires mental guidance, and you must concentrate and complete it in one go without any pause in the middle. Ronan is now a second-level wizard apprentice. Engraving the clean rune. By the end, his mental power was exhausted, his state declined, and he was weak. Actually, my progress is already fast. I guess most wizards haven't even mastered it by now. The ability of the panel did not disappoint Ronan after all, and the whole process of rune research was still very smooth. Whether it was copying practice or carving practice, his progress was super fast. After officially getting started with a runestone, he could gain a lot of new insights and experience after each failure. In the first 17 attempts, his progress was almost visible to the naked eye. Every time he failed, the progress of the next time would be greatly advanced. On the 16th attempt, Ronan reached 95%. He thought he would succeed completely this time, but he was still a little short. There is no difference between being almost successful and being far short of success for me, because I only have so many materials. If I still can't succeed after using up the remaining 3 blank runestones, I can only consider borrowing money or selling my belongings. Ronan sighed and called up his character panel. Name: Ronan Damien. Age: 16. Talent: no attribute affinity. Strength: level 2 wizard apprentice, 13%. Skills: basic meditation, proficient 156/200, energy missile, mastery 334/400, charged weapon, entry 68 out of 100. In a month, all abilities have increased. The mental power has not increased much, and the progress of the second-level wizard apprentice has only advanced by 10%. At this rate, Ronan can be promoted to third-level wizard apprentice in 9 months. Of course, the time may be shortened, because Ronan's proficiency in basic meditation has been improving, and the effect of each meditation is getting better and better. Ronan has practiced energy missile to a proficient level, and the casting speed has increased again. Now Ronan only needs to recite a few syllables of the spell and use simple hand gestures to successfully release it. The total casting time has been compressed to within 3 seconds, and the power of energy missile has also increased slightly. In order to enrich his means of attack, Ronan also learned charged weapon from the 50 level spells. The function of this spell is to add a temporary enchantment effect to the weapon, which is actually a thin layer of energy particles. Every time the charged weapon collides with an object, the energy particles attached to the weapon will be consumed, causing a killing effect similar to an explosion. Ronan is not good at close combat, and his attention to this skill is average. He practiced it casually and is only at the entry level now. Pa. Ronan threw the wet towel into the basin, splashing water, and stood up. Let's go out for a walk. It was tiring to stay in the house to study rune engraving. Mental fatigue was one thing, and the small tree house was damp and hot. Ronan's butt hurt from sitting, which was not good for his body. Landing on the long vine, Ronan coughed twice, and his left chest ached. Long-term and high-frequency meditation activities, the erosion of energy particles on the lungs became more and more serious, and Ronan already felt affected. Night training method. If it doesn't work, write a letter back and ask the Earl's people to send a few copies, but you have to wait for a year or 2. Ronan thought, wearing a hunting suit, and walked into the woods in front of him. The quiet forest was dim, and there seemed to be a layer of light mist lingering in the forest all year round. Strange trees grew wildly everywhere, and there was a thick layer of rotten leaves and moss under his feet. Rustle. A slight sound came from his ears. Ronan's mental power, which had shrunk into a ball in his mind, quickly expanded. After locking onto the direction of the sound, he uttered a short, rapid sound. Woo. Blue. Bah. He pointed his fingers randomly, and the air in front of him quickly twisted. A fist-sized, dark blue ball of light quickly condensed and shot out. Boom. A bush more than 10 meters in front of Ronan exploded with a sound, and the soil and leaves splashed everywhere. A sturdy oak tree slowly fell down. Ronan walked over slowly and calmly, and found a bloody trace in a huge mud pit. Judging from the little fur left on the wall of the pit, the one who made the sound just now should be an unlucky wild wolf. The wizard is indeed extraordinary, and the power of the spell is too great. Ronan sighed as he looked at his masterpiece in front of him. In the secular world, ordinary people must practice the way of knights to a high level if they want to cause such destructive power, and this is just the effect of a low-level spell of level 0. The wizards are so outstanding that one can see it all. Now Ronan is much more calm and confident in the forest in this area than before, especially after he has mastered the energy missile. He feels that he is qualified to fight even against a third-level apprentice. His casting speed is much faster than that of the average low-level apprentice wizard, and the power of the energy missile at the master level is estimated to be 2 or 3 times greater than that at the entry level. Of course, the so-called combat power evaluation is just Ronan's own one-sided guess. He has not fought with other wizards yet, and has no idea what the battle between wizards is like. In addition, there are too many uncertainties in a battle due to the existence of spell props. Ronan continued to move forward along the route he usually took for morning exercise and jogging. The fresh air and quiet and beautiful environment in the woods gradually soothed his tired soul. When he came to a tree spring, Ronan squatted down to wash his hands and face, and felt refreshed. Thanks to my good brother Pudding Wumeo for being the leader. Chapter 11 Half-Elf. It was the tree spring that Ronan had discovered during his first morning exercise. After his minor success in energy missile, Ronan once again included it in his frequent haunts. Ronan did not find it strange that there were obvious signs of human activity around the tree hole where the sweet spring was bubbling. If he could find this tree spring, then others could too. As far as he knew, there lived a wizard near this tree spring. She was a woman. She was about 16 or 17 years old, with thick bangs and long braids, and she always liked to lower her head when she walked. Ronan had met her several times, but he could not see what she looked like. She's probably an ugly freak with pockmarks all over her face, buck teeth and a protruding mouth. Ronan speculated with a little bit of evil amusement. When he came to his senses, he remembered that he seemed to have a lot of freckles on his face. He was not careful and was hit by the boomerang he threw out. Ronan walked around the tree spring and headed west. After walking for about 10 minutes, the shadow of a small black tree house appeared in his sight. Ronan walked over and soon saw a brown-haired old man in a shabby black robe who was squatting on a small open space under the treehouse, making a fire and roasting something. What a nice smell. Ronan walked out of the woods and took the initiative to speak. The old wizard who was BB Queen was alert for a moment, but when he saw Ronan's appearance clearly, his expression gradually relaxed. "Oh, dear Ronan, you came at the right time." The old man laughed and stood up, inviting him. "Red-tail gray goat meat, I spent a lot of effort to get one, come and try it. It's my honor." Ronan did not refuse and walked forward with a smile. The old man was called Wells, a new friend he made this month, a wizard friend, and Ronan's only friend now. Wells was not young, probably old enough to be Ronan's grandfather, and his strength was slightly stronger than Ronan, and he was a third-level wizard apprentice. Old Wells had a good personality, no desires, and no pursuits. According to him, he had completely given up hope of being promoted to a fourth-level wizard apprentice. He had already booked a boat ticket to leave the Hoddam wizard land in the second half of the year. When the time came, he would just find a mortal kingdom and live the rest of his life as a noble lord. Old Wells was an old resident of this treehouse area. He had a good relationship with many wizards, and he also had good cooking skills. Ronan would occasionally come and have a meal. The tender lamb was placed on the grill, sizzling with oil under the orange-red flames. Old Wells skillfully controlled the temperature of the grill, and finally grabbed a handful of special seasonings from his waist bag and sprinkled them on. The rich aroma instantly filled the entire grove. Ronan picked up a dagger beside him to cut the roasted lamb, and the two sat on a bare tree trunk that had fallen to the ground and ate. "Would you like some wine?" Old Wells took out a beautiful silver wine bottle from the hollow tree trunk and asked Ronan. "No thanks." Ronan took a bite of the roasted lamb and shook his head to refuse. It was not that he did not trust Wells, but alcohol would paralyze his nerves, making his reaction slow, thus affecting the speed of casting spells. In case of an emergency, Ronan did not want to lose his life because of greed. The red-tailed gray goat that old Wells mentioned was a kind of wild goat unique to this area. It does not eat grass, but specializes in eating some sweet berries. It is said that the meat of the red-tailed gray goat is extremely delicious, with a sweet aroma of fruit honey. Now that he has tasted it, Ronan only thinks it is so-so, not as awesome as the rumors say. It is true that the red-tailed gray goat runs very fast, is extremely timid, and is extremely difficult to catch. I don't know how Old Wells got it. By the way, how is your research on runes going? The two chatted casually while eating. Ronan didn't intend to keep his self-taught rune engraving as a big secret. He accidentally mentioned it to Old Wells during a previous chat. It was amazing that he still remembered it. Oh, it's difficult. Ronan sighed. His worried look was not entirely fake. Don't worry. Old Wells patted his shoulder and comforted him. You are still young and have a lot of time. Take your time. Ronan nodded. Neither of them had a too in-depth discussion on this topic. While eating, Old Wells suddenly told Ronan something new. Do you know that a pair of half-elf brothers and sisters moved to the east these days? Half-elf. Ronan was startled, and the image of a fair-skinned, beautiful, pointed-eared and long-legged elf girl subconsciously emerged in his mind. Damn, I didn't expect that even such a fantasy species existed in the wizarding land. Ronan suddenly felt a strong curiosity in his heart, and hurriedly asked Old Wells to tell him in detail. Maybe she has some elf blood in her body. I don't know much about it, after all, I've only seen her once. At this point, Old Wells reminded Ronan, if you want to get in touch with them, be careful. I've dealt with these two people before. They're not easy to get along with, and they have fierce personalities. On the way back from eating barbecue, Ronan was still thinking about the half-elf brother and sister. The four words elf girl were quite attractive to him. Ronan had only seen them in cartoons and movies in his previous life. Now he heard that a girl with real elf blood was living next to him. It would be a lie to say that he didn't want to get in touch with her. But Old Wells' solemn warning made him temporarily suppress his desire. Even Old Wells, a third-level wizard apprentice, said that the other party was not easy to get along with and had a fierce temperament. It was not a wise move for him to approach rashly. It's really fresh. I must find a chance to get to know her later, so that I don't have to chat with an old man every time. Ronan secretly looked forward to it. After a stroll back to his residence, he felt much more relaxed. Ronan practiced energy missile for a while facing the open space, and then took a shower and meditated. After adjusting his state to the best state, Ronan sat down at the workbench again. 3 chances. Looking at the only 3 blank rune stones left in front of him, Ronan tried to calm himself down. He had used up 1 bag of the universal powder he bought last time, and the remaining bag had just been opened. He scooped a few spoonfuls of grayish-white, dusty universal powder into a small pottery jar, mixed it with the morning dew collected every morning, and the preparations for engraving the runes were almost complete. The preparation of universal powder is actually a technical job, but after practicing for so long, he has his own understanding of the preparation of universal powder preparation liquid, and can accurately grasp the ratio between water and powder. Pour the preparation liquid into the container on the carving knife, pick up a blank runestone, and go over the shape and every detail of the clean rune in his mind. Take a deep breath, then pick up the carving knife. Chapter 12 Getting Started. Ronan was calm as a mirror. A thin strand of mental power lingering in his mind was connected to the carving knife in his hand, just like a catheter for infusion. As the tip of the carving knife moved on the blank runestone, this mental power was slowly injected into the rune grooves that appeared along with the universal powder preparation liquid. Everything went smoothly. Seeing that the work was about to be completed, Ronan felt a little joyful that victory was in sight. His mind relaxed, and the hand holding the carving knife trembled slightly, and the trajectory of the carving knife deviated. Crack! A crack appeared on the rune stone in his hand, and the whole rune stone was scrapped. Ouch! Ronan shouted with annoyance, wishing he could slap himself a few big slaps. Almost, really just a little bit. If the last failure was 97%, this time it was 99%. The last knife to finish the matter was just wasted. Champagne in the first half. Getting carried away, Ronan rubbed his brows, sighed, and sat down on the small bed helplessly, and began to meditate. As the proficiency of basic meditation increased by 1 again, the depleted mental power was restored. Ronan drank a sip of water and continued to work hard. Because of the lesson from last time, Ronan was extra cautious this time. The effect of the character panel was perfectly exerted, and it went smoothly all the way to the end. The last cut was a beautiful finish, and the surface of the rune stone engraved with a complete, clean, rune flashed a glimmer, and a faint mysterious breath came out. When the real success came, Ronan was not so excited, but more relaxed, satisfied, and a little joy that he finally got what he wanted after working so hard for so long. Continue to meditate, and then engrave. An hour later, Ronan, with a tired face, stood in the hut, and took advantage of the few rays of sunlight shining in from outside the house to carefully examine the 2 finished rune stones in his hand. The panel was called up, and there was a little more content on the character panel at this time. Name: Ronan Damien. Age: 16. Talent: no attribute. Affinity: Strength, level 2 Wizard Apprentice, 14%. Skills: Basic Meditation, Proficient 158/200, Energy Missile, Mastery 339/400, Charged Weapon, Entry 68 out of 100, Rune Imprinting, Cleaning, Entry 2/100. The imprinting of the clean rune is completely introductory, with 2 points of proficiency. Perhaps it is due to the accumulation, even the progress of strength has increased by 1%, which can be regarded as a double happiness. The price of the clean rune is 1 magic stone, and 2 pieces are 2 magic stones. Ronan spent a total of 69 magic stone fragments to buy materials. After deducting the cost, the net profit was 31 magic stone fragments for 1 magic stone. Of course, this is not the most important thing. The important thing is that from now on, Ronan can be regarded as having a stable income channel, and he is no longer in the state of living off his savings and spending less and less. It's not easy. Ronan sat down on the chair, completely relaxed, not wanting to think about anything, not wanting to do anything. Although he looked fine, God knows how much psychological pressure he has been under for the past month. For the rune engraving, Ronan put all his wealth on it. Although his total wealth is not much, it is a gamble for him. If he fails, Ronan will really have to beg for food. Fortunately, it succeeded. The result was a little better than Ronan expected. 2 out of 20 blank rune stones were successful. Now the only problem he had to consider was how to sell the 2 clean runes on hand and exchange them for magic stones. Right. Ronan suddenly remembered something. The stall owner who sold him blank rune stones once said shamelessly that as long as he could successfully engrave a rune, he would give him 10 bags of blank rune stones for free. Ronan stood up immediately and wanted to rush to the market and slap the 2 clean runes in front of the stall owner. But after thinking it over, he sat down again. It's better not to act like that. Ronan didn't know how many blank rune stones others would need to learn rune engraving from a complete novice to an entry-level person, but it must be far more than 20. If he behaved too much, he didn't know if the secret of the panel would be leaked. What if he was spotted by someone with ulterior motives, arrested, and locked up in a small dark room, making him a beast of burden to engrave runes day and night? After all, he was just a second-level wizard apprentice. Moreover, the stall owner only said the 10 bags of blank rune stones verbally, without notarization or any contract, and could change his mind at any time. Maybe only Ronan was stupid enough to take it seriously. After thinking it over, Ronan decided not to take advantage of this. I still have to go to the market. There are no blank rune stones left. Ronan thought. After meditating, he looked at the sky, and hurriedly left home with 2 rune stones. In the busy wizard market, Ronan, dressed in a long robe, walked down the street naturally. Under the robe, he held 2 rune stones of cleanliness tightly in his hands, his palms sweating. Ronan was afraid of being robbed. He was not so nervous last time when he brought a money bag. Should I find a place to set up a stall? Ronan looked around, and was a little worried that it would be too shabby to set up a stall to sell only 2 cleanliness runes. If he had known, he would have brought the dried meat that was not sold last time. Ronan turned around and found that he was overthinking. He couldn't set up this stall whenever he wanted. You have to pay to set up a stall in the market. Even if it is the worst location, you have to pay 5 magic stone fragments for a day. Ronan only has 1 magic stone particle in his body, and he can't even afford the cheapest rent, so he can only give up this idea. After turning around for a while, it was getting dark, and Ronan realized that if he wanted to sell the 2 runes, it seemed that he could only go back to the rune stone vendor who had laughed at him. Did you really carve this yourself? The vendor in front of him opened his mouth slightly and looked at Ronan in disbelief. Yes. Ronan nodded. Damn it. The stall owner cursed, and suddenly seemed to react, and sneered and said, Boy, you must have wasted more than 15 blank runes, right? Ronan avoided the other party's aggressive eyes, and denied it with a guilty conscience. No, it's just the 15 you took. Do you think I'm stupid? The stall owner rolled his eyes. I've been in Hoddam for so long, and I've never heard of a rune master who successfully got started with 100 blank rune stones. Tell me, how many did you spend? Ronan was like a child who was embarrassed after his lie was exposed. He was a little embarrassed, and after struggling for a long time, he lowered his head and chose to honestly confess. Okay. I admit. I barely succeeded with almost 200 blank rune stones. That's about right. Seeing the slight unnaturalness on the stall owner's face, Ronan regretted that he had reported less. Chapter 13, The Method of Sharpening. But your talent is not bad. The stall owner played with Ronan's 2 clean runes, looked at him, and said, "What do you mean now? Are you going to sell the things to me? Just tell me whether you will take them or not." "Yes, of course." The stall owner nodded and said lightly, 2 clean runes, I will give you 1.5 low-level magic stones. Shouldn't it be 2? Ronan was anxious. Please, that's the selling price. Now it's the purchase price. The stall owner replied unhappily, try to see if you can sell these 2 runes at the market. Normally, who would buy 1 or 2 runes from you on the street stall? If they want to go, they should go to a regular rune shop. Then why are you still setting up a stall here? Ronan expressed his disbelief. The stall owner seemed a little helpless. I set up a stall mainly to collect things. I can't just put nothing on the stall. Oh, if you think the price is too low, take it to a regular rune shop to sell it yourself. The stall owner threw the 2 runes back to Ronan, but don't blame me for not reminding you, regular rune shops are only available in the dwarf market next door, and you have to spend a magic stone every time you go to the dwarf market. And a stranger like you is only selling 2 lowest level universal runes, and regular rune shops may not necessarily accept them. Ronan's face changed, thinking again and again, and finally he could only reluctantly agree. Okay, 1.5 is fine. Okay. The transaction was completed. The stall owner took the runes and gave Ronan a low-level magic stone and 50 magic stone fragments. Ronan turned around and spent another 50 magic stone fragments to buy 10 blank runes from him. Maybe because Ronan was so poor, the stall owner suddenly showed his kindness and gave him an extra 10 yuan. He then patted Ronan on the shoulder and said, "Boy, don't think you can make money just by getting started. You've only just started spending money. Think about it." Ronan understood what the stall owner meant. The success rate of a novice rune master engraving a rune is too low. You may not succeed once in 10 times. It is difficult to make a profit in the early stage. You have to practice a rune thoroughly before you can slowly turn losses into profits. However, Ronan has the blessing of the panel. Every time he engraves, he can make progress. His success rate is far higher than that of ordinary rune masters. The stall owner didn't know this. Walking away from the stall, Ronan couldn't wait to take out the low-level magic stone he had just obtained. It was no longer a piece of magic stone, but a real low-level magic stone, about the size of a pigeon egg. It was black in color, smooth on the surface, cool to the touch, and very hard. Holding it in the hand, you can clearly feel the energy particles accumulated inside. The main purpose of magic stone is to provide energy for magic tools and rune arrays. It is also needed in many alchemical experiments, so it will become a hard currency among wizards. I can only do this stall 2 or 3 more times, otherwise my rune talent will be completely exposed sooner or later. Ronan carefully put the magic stone into his money bag, thinking, wait until I save some money, and then I will go to the rune shop to sell it myself. Although Ronan felt distressed about the entrance fee of a low-level magic stone at the dwarf market, it was nothing compared to his personal safety. It can also save the difference made by the middleman. Ronan took out his pocket watch and looked at the time. It was more than 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which was still early, so he thought about strolling around the market again. With money in his pocket, his whole mentality has changed. Now Ronan dares to stop in front of some stalls and pretend to ask the price of things. You dare to charge 50 magic stones for a low-level 0-level magic tool? It's too expensive. Ronan walked away from a stall with a look of disdain, completely ignoring the stall owner behind him who was still shouting 49 and 48, as if he could really afford it after the price reduction. After walking a little further, Ronan's eyes suddenly stopped in front of a stall full of black leather books. His expression changed slightly, and he walked up slowly. The stall owner was a young man who looked to be in his 30s. He was wearing leather armor, which was rare. He looked very energetic. Seeing a customer coming, the young wizard's eyes lit up and he greeted Ronan very enthusiastically. "Take a look, I basically have all the spell books below the advanced level of 0. Ronan felt a mental power faintly emanating from the young man, which was obviously many times stronger than his own. Knowing that the other party was a wizard apprentice who was much stronger than himself, he behaved quite politely. He nodded and carefully flipped through the books. As the young wizard said, his stall mainly sells spell books. 0 level intermediate fire spell collection, 0 level intermediate ice spell collection, 0 level intermediate electric spell collection. These spell books were probably compiled and bound by the young wizard himself. The covers were similar, the names were the same, and the only difference was the thickness. Ronan took a book of electric spells and tried to ask the price. After getting a number that he could not afford, he thought about it and said hesitantly, "Actually, I want to buy a better set of night training methods." Oh. The young wizard was not too surprised to learn of Ronan's true purpose. He smiled and said, "The problem of energy particle erosion has worsened, right? I can tell from your appearance that you must be weak, and it's time to practice." Ronan nodded awkwardly. "You've found the right person." The young wizard turned his head and rummaged behind him for a while, then took out a thick bundle of books. These books were obviously not as exquisite as the spell books on the stall. They looked like notes or something, and many of the covers were yellowed. Ronan picked up one and flipped through it. Lionheart's bodybuilding technique, passed down by the legendary knight of the kingdom of Nanao, the Duke of Lionheart. He picked up another one. Silver Cross bodybuilding technique. Ronan read a few of them and felt that the effects were very good, at least they were as good as they were said to be. If he could achieve 1/10 of the effect described above, it would be enough to meet his requirements. But when he asked about the price, he was shocked. Why is it so expensive? Ronan was a little confused. Even a mortal knight's training method costs several magic stones. In the mortal world, it is the top knight's inheritance. If you practice it to the top, you may be able to compete with high-level apprentices. The question is who can practice this thing to the extreme. Ronan kept shaking his head. "I just want to strengthen my body. I don't need any top knight inheritance. Is there a cheaper one?" "The cheaper ones are at the bottom. 2 or 3 magic stones are enough, but the grade will be much different." "Cheaper? Give me the cheapest one." "The cheapest?" The young wizard frowned and his attitude gradually became cold. He pulled out a book from under a pile of books and threw it in front of Ronan. "Look, this one is the cheapest. It doesn't have any sword skills or breathing techniques. It only has a few bodybuilding postures that are said to be the training methods used by ascetic monks in ancient times." The young wizard paused for a moment and continued, "It's absolutely fine if you just use it to strengthen your body." Ronan picked it up and flipped through it quickly, then asked, "How much is this book?" Chapter 14 Self-Abuse. Damn it. This set of broken bodybuilding technique that doesn't even have a name still requires me to have a low-level magic stone. Ronan walked out of the market with gritted teeth. In the end, he bought the things. Before leaving, the young wizard who sold it to him promised that it would definitely be good for physical fitness. He himself had practiced it for a while, and even told him mysteriously that this set of bodybuilding technique would also be helpful for spiritual practice. Is it true? Ronan didn't quite believe it. In fact, he wanted to go somewhere else, but in the end, the young wizard stall owner directly released his spiritual power, suddenly putting pressure on Ronan, as if he would make him look bad if he didn't buy it. Ronan could only hold his nose and swallow this loss. Without strength, I will be bullied even when I buy something. Ronan returned to his home in the forest with a depressed mood. This time, he successfully sold 2 cleansing runes, but he still had no money left in his pocket when he came back. It's true that you make money at the market and spend it at the market, and you want to take it home after parting. Because of the excitement at the market, Ronan threw himself into rune engraving as soon as he got home. In 3 days, he engraved all the 20 blank rune stones he had just acquired, and succeeded in engraving 6 in total. Then he sold them one by one in several batches, and purchased a large number of blank rune stones. Until the last time, the stall owner who collected runes looked at him with a slightly changed look, and he made up his mind not to go there again. Huh? Ronan took a rune stone, gently blew away the dust and stone chips on the stone surface, and then looked at it with a little satisfaction. Another one. Although his proficiency in the clean rune is still at the entry level, Ronan's success rate is now quite high. Sometimes when he is in good condition, Ronan can succeed 2 or 3 times in a row. When he is in bad condition, it is common for him to fail 5 or 6 times in a row. On average, Ronan's success rate is about 30%, and he can succeed once in 3 times. When I have the conditions in the future, I must prepare a quiet and undisturbed workroom. Many times, I failed because of the sudden flying of insects into the house and the birds outside the house. Ronan thought, putting the rune stones on hand into a special pocket. He has already saved 3 or 4, cleaning, runes. Because he has sufficient materials, he plans to save more at once this time, and then go directly to the dwarf market to find a regular rune shop to sell. I sold 6, cleaning, runes for 4.5 low-level magic stones, kept 1 magic stone for the entrance fee, and used the rest to buy materials. The last time he went to sell runes, Ronan bargained with the stall owner and almost wiped out the few friendships between the two. The main selling point was that he would never see each other again. He stockpiled about 100 blank runestones, which was enough for him to use for a long time. After leaving the house, Ronan stretched his waist. During this period, he spent almost all his energy on rune engraving. Except for meditation, all daily activities were basically suspended. Now that he was free, he felt a tightness in his chest. He wanted to go out for some fresh air, so he walked along the forest path and unknowingly arrived at the lake. Whoosh! A blue ball of light flew into the lake with a whistling sound, and a water column several meters high exploded with a bang. Then the second and the third Ronan threw 4 or 5 energy missiles into the lake in one breath, then took off his shoes, rolled up the hem of his robe, and waded into the lake barefoot to catch the fish that were blown up by the energy missiles. Tonight's dinner is settled. Ronan caught a few fish and put them in his robe pocket, planning to make soup with 1, grill 1, and dry the rest. After staying by the lake for a while, letting the breeze and beautiful scenery gently brush away his physical and mental fatigue, Ronan returned with the fish. The dinner was very sumptuous. Ronan treated himself to a good meal of fish soup with the leftover venison and wild fruits at home. After dinner, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Since he did not plan to print runes tonight, he did not make a firefly lamp. Ronan sat under the oak tree and looked through the bodybuilding method of the ancient ascetics who had bought it before in the moonlight. Just practice it according to the instructions. Ronan flipped through the entire booklet from beginning to end. There were only a dozen different action pictures and explanations accompanying the pictures. There was nothing surprising. As a rune master, he had the habit of memorizing all the pictures and words on the first page of the booklet before practicing, and then tried it out. What an awkward posture. After getting started, Ronan began to feel the difficulty. It might also be because his body foundation was too poor and his limbs were stiff. The posture in the picture looked quite simple, but he couldn't get it right after a long time, and he was sweating all over. Hoo-hoo, Ronan was panting heavily from exhaustion, but his mentality was very good. Not bad, not bad. This amount of exercise is almost as much as my usual 1 or 2 hours of exercise. It's worthy of being a serious bodybuilding technique. Ronan didn't care at all that he was still a long way from the first posture. He stood up and wiped his sweat. No more practice, meditate early and go to bed early. The days returned to their regularity and dullness. Meditation, rune engraving, exercise, spell practice. The only difference was that Ronan changed the content of exercise from running to practicing bodybuilding techniques. This ancient bodybuilding technique, which cost him a whole low-level magic stone, progressed slowly, but the effect was quite significant. Ronan's appetite increased day by day, and his body became obviously stronger. Hurry, hurry, hurry. It hurts, hurts, hurts. Ronan half lay on the grass under the tree, his body in a rather awkward posture, his expression distorted, and one hand kept slapping the ground quickly, just like surrendering in a boxing match. Pa. Ronan dropped his posture and lay on the ground with his arms and legs spread out. After a long while, he slowly sat up from the ground. Damn, why is it more painful the deeper I practice? Ronan wiped the sweat off his face, his eyes full of dissatisfaction. The closer he got to the first move of this ancient ascetic bodybuilding method bought from the market, the more intense the pain he felt during the practice. Just like just now, Ronan felt that his body was about to be torn apart, and the pain made him cry and run everywhere. If this kind of pain, wouldn't it be helpful for spiritual practice? Ronan gritted his teeth, knowing that the young wizard at the market had tricked him. In fact, he should have reacted earlier. The physical training method of ancient ascetics. What is the practice of ascetics like? Scorching heat, severe cold, fasting. Whatever perverted it is. This is basically a set of self-abuse methods specifically used to torture the body and improve one's tolerance for pain. Maybe it has a certain bodybuilding effect, but it is definitely not a proper knight's training method. Unfortunately, it is useless for Ronan to understand it now. So much time has passed, and others will definitely not give him a refund. Forget it, let's practice it first. I'll change to something else when I have more money. Ronan sighed weakly. The main thing is that he is already very close to the first posture, and this set of movements is painful, but every time I finish practicing, I sweat a lot and feel quite comfortable. The effect of strengthening the body is not bad. Ronan touched his cheek, and unconsciously, the fat on his face seemed to have become much less. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, The Land of Peace. Back in the cabin, Ronan called up his character panel. Name, Ronan Damien. Age, 16. Talent, no attribute. Affinity, Strength, Level 2 Wizard Apprentice, 25%. Skills, Basic Meditation, Mastery 27 out of 400, Energy Missile, Expert 72 out of 800, Charged Weapon, Proficient 23/200, Rune Imprint, Cleaning, Beginner 87/100. In less than a month, Ronan's strength progressed by 11%, and the speed of mental strength growth was much faster. The reason is the improvement of basic meditation proficiency. The effect of each meditation is much better than before at the master level of basic meditation. It seems that he has entered a deeper level of meditation. Now every time Ronan meditates, the light in the nothingness and darkness in his mind becomes brighter and brighter, and the traces of rotation become clearer, just like circles of ripples on the dark water. If my proficiency in basic meditation continues to improve, will my meditation efficiency be comparable to those wizard geniuses with outstanding qualifications? The gap in cultivation talent can be eliminated by a large margin. Ronan secretly hoped. He never slacked off in the practice of Energy Missile, and his proficiency successfully broke through to the expert level. After becoming an expert, the power of Energy Missile soared again, and it was so strong that it almost didn't seem like a low-level spell of level 0. The casting speed also increased again. Now Ronan only needed more than a second to throw an Energy Missile. However, it became much more difficult to improve proficiency after becoming an expert. Before, it would only increase a little proficiency after 1 or 2 times, but now it would only increase a little after casting 4 or 5 times. To Ronan, it felt like the fragmented insights gained after casting a spell were too little, and he had to wait until these insights accumulated to a certain level before his proficiency would increase a little. The stronger the power of the spell and the faster the casting speed, the more combat effectiveness it brought, and Ronan's self-confidence also rose with it. Ronan felt that he lacked some practical experience. Apart from the various small animals in the forest, he had no experience fighting with humans. In order to be fully prepared for this day that was bound to come, Ronan was already thinking about what to practice with and make up for the actual combat. There was nothing much to say about Charge Weapon. After practicing it casually to the proficiency level, Ronan didn't care about it anymore. The proficiency of the Clean rune was improved a lot. After getting started, Ronan found that even if he failed to engrave, failed a few more times, he could still increase his proficiency a little. The high-intensity rune engraving activities, unknowingly, almost maxed out the proficiency of the entry stage. Thinking of this, Ronan subconsciously stood up, walked to an old wooden box in the corner, and opened it. Pushing aside the pile of messy debris on the upper layer specially used as a cover, there were 21 clean runes neatly arranged underneath. If I sell all 21 magic stones for 75 magic stones each, I can get 16 low-level magic stones. 16 low-level magic stones. A number that Ronan never dared to think about before, but now he will get it soon. He only needs to take time to go to the market and exchange the rune stones for magic stones. If it weren't for the fact that the rune stones in front of him were all saved up by himself one by one this month, Ronan almost doubted whether he was dreaming. I can earn in nearly 16 low-level magic stones in a month, and this is just selling the lowest level, cleaning, rune. The rune master's job is really profitable. Ronan couldn't help but sigh. Looking at the pile of rune stones in front of him, He secretly calculated in his mind. Once I get the magic stone, I'll rent a house with a workshop in the town and move out of the tree house area. Then I'll get a better rune carving knife. The tip of this knife is almost worn out. I'll buy a magic tool, preferably a staff. How can I look like a wizard without a staff in my hand? Just as Ronan was imagining all the plans after getting the magic stone. Ahem. Someone coughed outside the house. Ronan became alert instantly and immediately covered the rune stone and put the box away. Then he picked up the meat-cutting dagger on the table, took it in his hand, and walked out of the tree house step by step. Opening the door, Ronan walked out of the house carefully. It was late at night, and there were scattered fireflies floating in the forest. With the light of the fireflies and the moon, Ronan caught a glimpse of a figure standing under his treehouse. Who? Under his robe, Ronan slowly raised his hand holding the dagger. His palms were sweating and he was a little nervous. But soon, a familiar voice came from below. Ronan, it's me. Old Wells. Why did he come to see me so late at night? Were they not close enough to visit each other's house at night? Ronan was startled, and his tense nerves relaxed slightly, but he did not completely relax his vigilance. He lay on the edge of the tree branch and asked Old Wells below why he came to visit at night. Unexpectedly, Old Wells replied in a low voice, I'm here to inform you that Potter is dead. What? Potter is dead? Ronan was shocked. After the shock, his face showed some confusion and bewilderment. Who is Potter? In the quiet woods, a group of people in robes gathered in a circle with torches. Under the flickering firelight, the body of a middle-aged man lay coldly. The dark green robe, the hideous and distorted expression, showed that he must have experienced great pain before his death. A little blonde girl, who was probably only 5 or 6 years old, lay on the body and cried. Ronan stood in the crowd, looking at the crying little girl in front of him with a slightly sympathetic and reluctant look, but he didn't have much emotion when he saw the dead. Most of the people around him reacted similarly to him, or even more indifferent than him. The dead man's name was Potter, and Ronan barely knew him. They had met each other several times in the woods. This man had lived in the tree house area with his daughter for many years. He usually kept to himself and had few friends. Now that he died suddenly, most of the people who came to mourn were nearby neighbors. May the truth guide you, and your soul stay in the land of peace forever. Old Wells stood beside the dead Potter and his daughter, holding an ebony staff in his hand, and recited the eulogy in a low voice. After reciting, Old Wells uttered the syllables of a spell, summoning an orange-red fireball the size of a ping-pong ball, and the body burned fiercely in the moonlight. The little girl cried even louder, and all the wizards bowed their heads in silence for a few seconds. After the brief funeral, Old Wells began to talk to everyone one by one. Ronan didn't know what Old Wells said. He only saw that every wizard he found was silent at first, then shook his head, turned around and disappeared into the darkness. Ronan. Finally, Old Wells walked up to Ronan. Ronan nodded and waited for Old Wells to speak. Potter died, leaving his daughter Cheryl without anyone to take care of her. Are you willing to adopt her? Chapter 16, Dark Witch Land. As soon as Old Wells spoke, Ronan was stunned. He subconsciously looked at the small figure crying at the flames in the center of the clearing. Then he shook his head. Don't joke. I'm still a child myself. Old Wells explained, in fact, there is no need to take care of her. Just keep her with you. If you are willing, you will get half of the inheritance left by Potter. Ronan thought about it and shook his head. Forget it. Old Wells seemed to have expected this result, and there was no surprise. He said hey softly and was about to walk to the next person. Ronan's eyes moved slightly and called Old Wells. How did Potter die? Ronan was very curious about this. Potter's body did not seem to have obvious external injuries. From the miserable death, it seemed that he had died suddenly from some acute illness, but what kind of disease could take the life of an apprentice wizard so quickly? It looks like a curse spell. Potter must have offended someone he shouldn't have offended. Old Wells stopped and said in a low voice, I suspect that there may be wizards from the Dark Witch Land. Anyway, you should be more careful during this period. Ronan was startled and just wanted to pull Old Wells to ask a few more questions, but the other party had already walked away. Curse spell, Dark Witch Land. Ronan silently recited the 2 words mentioned by Old Wells, and his face gradually became solemn. Although he was a rookie in the wizarding world, he had also heard of the legend of the Dark Witch Land. The Dark Witch Land does not refer to a specific place, but a general term for the gathering place of black-robed wizards. Like most things in the world, wizards are also divided into good and evil. The black-robed wizards are the evil camp among wizards. They mainly practice dark, undead, and curse spells, and their personalities are much more cruel and weird than ordinary wizards. The opposite of the black robes is the white robes, and Hoddam is a gathering place for gray-robed wizards between the two, and its camp is closer to neutral. Is the curse spell of the Black Witch land so terrible? Ronan looked at the blazing flames in the open space in front of him, and recalled Potter's hideous and twisted death in his mind. It was hard to imagine what kind of torture and pain Potter went through before his death. If such a curse fell on him. Ronan suddenly felt a chill rising from his back, and dared not think any further. At this time, a figure walked out of the crowd and walked towards the little girl Cheryl by the fire. Ronan unexpectedly discovered that it was the wizard girl who lived by the tree spring. The girl was still dressed in her usual way, wrapped in a loose black robe, and her thick bangs covered most of her face, making it difficult to see whether she was fat or thin, beautiful or ugly. She walked to Cheryl, stretched out a hand and gently stroked Cheryl's head, chanting in a low voice, and circles of faint white light emerged from her palm. It should be some kind of small spell to soothe the soul. Cheryl's crying gradually calmed down under the white light, and finally she snuggled up to the girl's feet and fell asleep. I didn't expect this guy to be so nice. Ronan saw the wizard girl squatting down and gently hugging the sleeping Cheryl. While sighing, he suddenly noticed the two people who were talking to Old Wells at this time. One tall and one short. The tall one was burly, with strong limbs, wearing black leather armor, and carrying a huge wooden bow and a quiver on his back. The short one was wearing a light green robe, holding a staff made of banyan branches in his hand, with a slender figure and delicate features. Both of them had much longer and sharper ears than ordinary people. Is it the half-elf brother and sister who just moved in? Ronan reacted instantly, and then couldn't help but stare at the delicate woman in the two and secretly look at her out of curiosity. The latter seemed to sense his gaze, turned around and smiled at him gently. Before Ronan could respond, he saw the burly man next to the girl glaring at him fiercely, and even made a move to reach for the bow and arrow behind him. Ronan's heart trembled, and he didn't dare to look anymore, and left in a hurry. The death of the middle-aged wizard Potter did not cause much commotion in this forest area. The topic of suspected black wizard was hotly discussed in the treehouse area for several days, but because there was no solid evidence, it was just speculation and ended up in vain. Ronan later heard that Potter's daughter Cheryl was finally adopted by the wizard girl in Old Wells who lived by the tree spring, which was quite unexpected. Town. At the entrance of the dwarf market. Ronan, who had just paid the entrance fee, stood in front of a middle-aged wizard in a sky-blue robe, listening to the other party's constant instructions. With this voucher, you can enter and leave the market freely within 1 day. After 1 day, the voucher will automatically expire. You should take care of your time. Thank you. Taking the brass ring that flashed a faint white light from the other party, Ronan carefully put it on, and walked into the market while saying thank you. After entering, he immediately felt sorry for the low-level magic stone he had just spent. After deducting the cost, Ronan had to engrave 2 clean runes to earn back the money. In fact, it was possible to not pay. As long as one of the 2 conditions of level 6 wizard apprentice and formal student of Hoddam Wizard Academy was met, one could enter and exit the dwarf market completely free of charge. Unfortunately, no matter which condition it was, it seemed too far away for Ronan now. Shaking his head, Ronan put aside the messy thoughts and began to look at the scene in front of him. The street paved with white stone bricks was wide and flat. The road was lined with blue and purple dwarf flowers, and there were neat, tall and straight champs-élysées trees. Compared with the wizard market, the dwarf market was like a rich area. Occasionally, wizards in exquisite robes walked on the street, but the legendary dwarves were not seen. Hey, let's get down to business first. Ronan didn't have time to delve into this issue. He hurriedly walked on the street and finally stopped in front of a store called Welling Workshop. Through the transparent glass window outside the shop, Ronan saw the neatly stacked rune stones on the counter. Ronan glanced at the bright and clean door of the shop, subconsciously rubbed his muddy boots on the stone bricks at the door, then took a breath and strode in. More than an hour later. Look forward to your next visit. With a sweet and pleasant voice, the door of the Welling Workshop opened, and Ronan, with a strange look on his face, walked out of the shop again. At this time, Ronan's hand no longer had a package full of runestones, but a bulging money bag. There were 18 pieces of low-level magic stones in it. One more than Ronan had expected. Before entering the store, Ronan had imagined in his mind whether he would be coldly looked down upon by the clerk after entering, whether he would be questioned and rejected when he was looking down on the runes he was selling. In the end, everything went very smoothly. Ronan just slightly expressed his willingness to sell runes, and the people of the Welling workshop immediately arranged for a professional rune master. After appraising all the clean runes that Ronan brought, the workshop bought them all at the price of 80 magic stone fragments, and took the initiative to say that if Ronan needed to buy rune materials from the workshop, they would provide them to him at a price close to the cost. Blank rune stones are 3 magic stone grains each, and a bag of universal powder is given for free when 50 blank rune stones are purchased at a time. How many more magic stones did the guy who set up a stall in the wizard market earn from me? Ronan now felt that his idea of bypassing the middleman was really right. Although he spent an extra magic stone as an entry fee, this magic stone could be saved in the transaction, and there might even be more. Chapter 17 Ascension. This magic stone is worth it. Ronan sighed. After selling the rune, the shop assistant girl enthusiastically promoted the magic tools sold in the workshop to him for most of the day. If Ronan didn't have enough magic stones in his pocket, he might have bought one of the low-level 0-level magic tools. I can't afford the magic tools, but I have to replace the rune carving knife. The original one is so worn that it will affect the success rate of engraving. Ronan suddenly remembered this and subconsciously turned back to the workshop, but he slapped his forehead lightly the next second. Stupid. The things must be bought cheaply at the street stalls. Let's go to the wizard market. Because things went smoothly, Ronan had plenty of time for this trip. With 18 low-level magic stones in his waist, Ronan walked arrogantly in the wizard market full of stalls. He walked until the sun was setting before he left the town. He spent 2 low-level magic stones and bought a good quality rune carving knife at a stall selling groceries. Although it was second-hand, the material used was a special metal called tungsten silver. Both the feel and durability were much better than Ronan's original one. Originally, he planned to find a house in the urban living area after he had money, but after being led by the real estate agent to several places, Ronan was not very satisfied with any of them. Urban life has its advantages, such as safety and convenience. But there are also many disadvantages, such as noise and crowds. If you want to practice alone quietly for a while, you have to spend money to go to a special spell training room, or go to the wild. Now Ronan is no longer as insecure as when he first crossed over. After living in the tree house for more than 2 months, he has gradually become accustomed to life in the forest. After thinking it over again and again, Ronan finally decided to temporarily put the plan of moving into the town on hold. It's better to save more money and then go directly to the college. On the way home, Ronan stood on a high slope near the forest, looking at the Hoddam college shrouded in white fog in the distance, and made a silent decision in his heart. Although it seems that everything is slowly getting on track for him now, in fact, the road ahead is still difficult. If he wants to keep walking steadily on the path of wizard, he must return to the academy, where there is a truly complete and systematic inheritance. This is almost impossible for a wandering wizard. Hoddam. Ronan took a deep look at the center of the white fog, his lips twitched slightly, then turned around and ran towards the forest with a money bag in his arms. The days passed in peace. Ronan's daily life is still hard training. After having the character panel, he is like a different person compared to his previous life. Now he is almost happy to do any activity that can improve his proficiency. Watching the values on the character panel increase little by little, no matter how boring the training is, it will not feel boring. Tick tick tick, sweat dripped down his chin and fell on the wooden floor, leaving a pool of obvious dark water marks. In the stuffy hut, Ronan was shirtless, wearing only a pair of white shorts, and half lying on the ground in an awkward and almost weird posture. His face was red and tense, his teeth were biting his lower lip tightly, veins were visibly bulging on his forehead, and mist was rising from his head, as if he was enduring great pain. If there were outsiders present at this time, and they looked closely at Ronan, they would find that his body, which had already twisted ridiculously, was still moving towards an even more ridiculous posture at an extremely slow speed. No one knew how long it had been. Suddenly, a crisp pop sounded in the hut, as if something suddenly broke. It was followed by a series of crackling explosions. Ronan, who had remained still in the last second, was now jumping on the floor as if he had a cramp, and the continuous sound of his muscles and bones bursting came from him. After the twitching and jumping, he was sweating profusely. Ronan's pores were like floods, and large drops of sweat oozed out of his body at a very fast speed, forming a stream on the surface of his body, and flowing into the cracks of the floor under his feet. A moment later, Ronan, who was almost dehydrated, sat on the ground weakly, but his face was full of joy. Damn it, I finally successfully got started with this torturous self-abuse technique. Pain can stimulate the growth of mental power, so in turn, the growth of mental power can naturally improve my ability to withstand pain. This method really works. I'm really a genius. Ronan was full of pride and called up his current character panel. Name, Ronan Damien. Age, 16. Talent, no attribute. Affinity, Strength, Level 3 Wizard Apprentice, 45%. Skills, Basic Meditation, Mastery 221 out of 400, Energy Missile, Expert 288 out of 800, Charged Weapon, Proficient 67/200, Rune Marking, Clean, Proficient 77/200, Shining, Entry 21 out of 100, Ascetic Body Forging, Entry 1/100. Compared with more than a month ago, Ronan's attributes have changed dramatically. The most exaggerated one is the Realm of Strength, which has been directly promoted from a second-level apprentice to a third-level apprentice, and the progress is even nearly halfway. The reason is that Ronan took drugs. After drinking a bottle of concentration potion worth 20 low-level magic stones, his mental strength directly increased by more than one level. The reason for taking drugs is also very simple: rune marking. After reaching the proficiency level of the clean rune, Ronan was no longer satisfied with the meager profits of the low-level general runes of the 0 level, and began to dream of the huge profits of the intermediate and even advanced runes. The difficulty of engraving general runes above the intermediate level of 0 level is one aspect, but the most important thing is the spiritual power level required of the rune master. For example, the intermediate runes of the 0 level must require the spiritual power cultivation of the intermediate wizard apprentice level. There are 9 levels of apprentices, and levels 1 to 3 are considered elementary. Levels 4 to 6 are intermediate, and the advanced level corresponds to levels 7 to 9. Apprentices above level 9 are formal wizards. Intermediate wizard apprentices represent at least the level of 4th level apprentices. Ronan calculated that according to his qualifications, even with a bonus of high-level meditation, it would take at least 1 to 2 years to reach the 4th level apprentice. He couldn't wait. So he chose to take drugs. It's a necessary investment in the early stage. Besides, the strength gained by drinking the potion is still my own. It's not a loss. Facts have proved that this is indeed the case. At this stage, Ronan has seen rich returns. Although his strength has not reached level 4, his level 3 mental strength makes him more comfortable when engraving the clean rune. With the improvement of his proficiency, the success rate of engraving the clean rune is now close to 1/2. He also helped Ronan unlock a new rune, Shining. As a low-level rune of level 0, the engraving difficulty of Shining is slightly higher than that of clean, and the price is also higher. The purchase price of Welling Workshop is 2 magic stones. But in fact, Ronan feels that the effect of the Shining rune is far less than that of the clean rune. The Shining rune is just to make the magic tool more attractive, and it is purely an enchantment of light effect. Chapter 18 Beautiful Boy. Ronan has already mastered the Shining rune. His success rate is now stable at about 1/3, but it takes half as long to engrave once as it does to engrave the cleaning rune. Ronan now mainly engraves the Shining rune, and only changes to the cleaning rune when he gets tired of it. Even so, his net income can reach about 35 low-level magic stones a month. He can live a comfortable life. Even if Ronan drinks a bottle of low-level concentration potion a month, it is more than enough. The concentration potion works best the first time it is taken, and the effect will weaken each time afterwards. However, my mental power increased by more than 1 level the first time I took it, so it is not too much to increase it by half a level the second time I take it. By then, I can successfully be promoted to the 4th level apprentice, and I can try to engrave the 0 level intermediate rune. Ronan heard that auxiliary mental potions will inevitably leave impurities in the mental power, and they cannot be taken too much, otherwise it will lead to an unstable foundation and it will be difficult to break through in the later stage. However, Ronan can't care about so much now. At worst he can find a way to solve it later. His eyes returned to the panel, and on the bottom line appeared a new line of small characters: Ascetic Bodybuilding, Beginner 1/100. The name of the skill is quite consistent with the content. Ronan practiced this bodybuilding technique for more than 2 months before he could officially get started. Ronan suddenly thought of something, got up and did the first bodybuilding exercise he had just practiced again. After officially getting started, his body seemed to have undergone some wonderful transformations. This exercise that seemed extremely difficult before now became much easier to do. But it still hurts. It's just that the pain is not as severe as before. Ronan maintained his posture and stared at the panel until the proficiency behind the austere bodybuilding skill on the panel silently jumped from beginner 1 to beginner 2, and then Ronan suddenly dispersed his posture. Huff! Ronan panted, wiped the sweat off his face, and a look of relief appeared on his face. Fortunately, I can continue to practice the first posture and action to increase my proficiency. If not, it would be fatal. This ancient ascetic bodybuilding method includes a total of 13 training postures and actions, each one more difficult and arduous than the last. The simplest first action has already tortured Ronan to death. If he was asked to practice the more difficult second one right away, he would definitely change the bodybuilding method decisively. But I have to say that the effect of strengthening the body is really good. Ronan lowered his head and looked at his sweaty body. He still remembered what this body looked like when he first crossed over. His breasts were slightly drooping, his belly was bulging, and the fat on his arms and thighs would shake when he shook them. What about now? His lower abdomen is flat, his limbs are strong and powerful, and there is no trace of obesity on his body. There are even muscle outlines. Compared with the past, this body is undoubtedly much stronger, more fit, and more symmetrical. He even grew several centimeters taller. The original robe draped over his body can show a bit of slenderness and uprightness. Ronan reached out and touched his cheek, feeling the smooth and firm touch in his palm. He went to find a small silver mirror left by his predecessor in the glove box. He used to dislike this ugly face and rarely looked in the mirror. But now, in the mirror, a face with a little angularity appeared. Fair and smooth skin, lake blue eyes, no matter the freckles on the face or the dark circles under the eyes, they were all so light that they were almost invisible. The chestnut curly hair was a little long, casually scattered, but showing a natural elegance. It was the aristocratic bloodline from the Earl's family. When Ronan tried to brush his long hair back, the mirror showed a handsome and noble young man. This is what it means to be a human being. Ronan put down the mirror and was quite satisfied with the results of his physical strengthening plan over the past few months. The dull pain in his chest and lungs had long disappeared, and it seemed that the problem of energy particle erosion had also been solved, which had exceeded his expectations. After looking in the mirror, Ronan casually picked up the gray robe that was thrown on the ground, put it on, and walked out of the house slowly. It was exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sun was blazing outside. The golden spots of light were scattered on the ground through the gaps between the branches and leaves of the forest. Ronan blew the forest breeze for a while, and felt that the sweat had subsided a little, so he climbed down along the long vine. When he climbed to about half the height from the ground, his brain suddenly became hot for no reason, and his hands loosened. Swoosh bang! A figure fell from midair, with his feet apart, standing steadily on the ground, and 2 small shallow pits appeared on the grass under his feet. Ronan exhaled a short breath, his face full of joy and novelty. He knew that his physique had been strengthened a lot after entering the austerity bodybuilding, but he didn't expect it to be so much stronger. Free falling from a height of nearly 4 meters in the air, he was able to land steadily and without any injury. This control of the center of gravity of the body and the foundation of physical fitness have improved a lot compared to before. Try it. Ronan's eyes flashed with a strange light, and he ran in one direction. He suddenly rushed into the jungle, startling countless beasts and birds. The wind blew past Ronan's ears, and he ran faster and faster. The complex forest terrain was almost flat under his feet. The rushing wind blew up Ronan's robe, and the skin and flesh on the surface of his body and limbs swayed rhythmically under the robe, revealing obvious lines. Ronan was just like a cheetah hunting, swift and agile. Awesome. Ronan ran for a long time, and he felt that there seemed to be a lot of hot heat flowing out of his chest continuously, without any feeling of exhaustion. He was so happy that he wanted to roar to the sky. I wonder how my current physical fitness compares with those nights in the secular world. It's a pity that austerity bodybuilding only teaches people to build their bodies, and there is no matching breathing method, otherwise it would probably allow me to practice night fighting spirit. Ronan ran wildly for a while, and he didn't know how long he ran or how far he ran. When he felt exhausted, he slowly slowed down and stopped, only to find that he had arrived in a completely unfamiliar environment. Looking around, the trees here were older and denser. The branches and leaves of various ancient trees above his head were connected together, almost blocking the sky, and only sporadic sunlight could shine in. Woo! The howling of an unknown beast came from the distance, and Ronan shuddered suddenly. Oh no, I'm too proud of myself. I didn't run into the depths of the forest. Ronan felt a little weak in his heart. He didn't forget that there were monsters in the depths of this forest. Legend has it that there are powerful beasts that can swallow ice and eat fire and are born with the ability to control energy particles. It is said that even the weakest monster has the strength equivalent to that of a mid-level wizard apprentice. If you accidentally encounter one, you may lose your life here. Hurry up and leave before it gets dark. Ronan became nervous and began to quickly return along the way he came. After walking for a while, he was about to say that he was lucky and didn't run into any messy things. Just then, boom! A loud explosion came from Ronan's left. Chapter 19 Dangerous. What's that sound? Ronan's expression tightened, his eyes changed for a while, and finally he walked step by step towards the direction where the sound came from. Curiosity is human nature, especially when Ronan's physical strength and cultivation have both increased, and his self-confidence is overflowing. It is harder than climbing to the sky to hold him down and stop him from watching the excitement. Take a look. Just one look, see what made the sound, and leave immediately. Ronan repeatedly warned himself in his heart. After all, he was still a little scared. But sometimes it's like this, the more afraid you are, the more you want to find out the source of the terror. Ronan tried his best not to make any sound. The deerskin boot stepped on the soft and wet mud, and occasionally made a slight sound of dead branches breaking. Pushing aside a dark green bush, a scene came into Ronan's eyes. He saw a messy open space, with broken and collapsed trees, blown up grass, and potholes everywhere. A man fell straight on a charred and cracked stone, with dark red and thick spray like blood all around his body. His entire chest was completely opened, and there were streams of green smoke coming out of it. It was obvious that he was deader than dead. About 10 meters away from the body, a pale man with a red mole on the left wing of his nose was leaning against a tree and breathing heavily. The strong smell of blood and burnt smell mixed with the smell of fermented and rotten leaves under his feet kept drilling into Ronan's nasal cavity, stimulating his originally calm blood to slowly speed up again. The traces of energy particles remaining in the air and the outfits of the two people in the field indicated that a fierce wizard battle had just taken place here. The specific reason is unknown, but judging from the current situation, it is obviously over. I'm afraid these two are both mid-level or even advanced wizard apprentices. Ronan's heart was beating fast. As he thought, he was about to retreat slowly along the original path. He didn't have any idea of picking up a bargain. In theory, he couldn't even watch the excitement of such a thing. But Ronan didn't feel any regret. He had seen this kind of thing twice, and this time the performance was much better than the last time. For a while, Ronan thought that it was good to encounter such a thing occasionally. At least it could let him experience the cruelty of the wizarding world and suppress his growing self-confidence. Just after retreating a few steps, new changes suddenly occurred on the field. Ronan stopped and looked at the field curiously. He saw that the surviving wizard seemed to have recovered at this moment, his lips were moving, and there were obvious energy particle fluctuations around him, obviously casting a spell. Are you going to destroy the body after killing people? Ronan thought casually in his mind. As a result, a cold and sinister gaze suddenly locked him firmly in the next moment. Go. The wizard chanted the spell and uttered a short, rapid sound. He raised his hand and a huge burning fireball appeared out of thin air, carrying layers of heat waves and heading straight for Ronan. Fuck. Ronan, who was locked in by the strong murderous intent, felt his hair stand on end instantly, and a chill surged into his heart. Only then did he realize that he had been exposed. He didn't care about cursing and turned around and ran without hesitation. Boom. The blazing fireball exploded behind him, and the flames that burst out instantly ignited the surrounding bushes. Ronan rolled on the ground and narrowly avoided this powerful fireball spell. His face was ugly. He touched his back and felt that his hands were slippery. It didn't hurt much, but his back was burning. It was probably burned. He looked up and saw that the wizard who had just thrown the fireball was walking towards him. As he walked, he continued to chant spells, and his eyes swept over Ronan coldly, which were full of coldness and contempt. Ronan didn't care about anything else, gritted his teeth, got up and continued to run. After running a few steps, he felt the clear energy particle fluctuations coming from behind him again. His scalp was numb, and he suddenly jumped forward a few steps and jumped onto a tree. When the heat wave behind him hit him, he kicked the tree trunk hard and rushed in another direction. Bang! Crunch, crunch, the burning tree made a tooth-grinding groan, slowly fell down, and turned into a pile of charred black in the blink of an eye. Ronan didn't even want to give himself time to breathe, and then he rushed forward and rolled again. Bang! The third fireball almost brushed Ronan's back of the head. If it wasn't for the physical breakthrough, I guess I would have died several times. Ronan roared in his heart while running away, and turned around and felt like crying. If it wasn't for the physical breakthrough, he wouldn't have come here and encountered such a thing. After the third fireball, Ronan ran for a while and suddenly found that there was no movement behind him. He wanted to stop and see what was going on, but he was worried that he would bump into another fireball if he turned around, and he might be killed. Running like this is not a solution. The wizard world has many ways to follow the trail and find me. Since this guy has already wanted to kill me, he will definitely not give up easily. After thinking about it, Ronan gritted his teeth and simply stopped. Then he walked back step by step. That guy just finished a big battle, and it can be said that he won with difficulty. His strength must not have fully recovered. Now should be his weakest time. If he waits for him to recover, I will be completely dead. Ronan's eyes flashed, and he quickly analyzed in his mind, and unknowingly quickened his pace. He admitted that he was gambling, but he was a small third-level wizard apprentice, facing an opponent who was obviously much stronger than him. If he gambled, he would still have a chance. If he didn't gamble, he would only find a place to wait for death. Thinking of this, a trace of determination flashed across Ronan's face, and he pulled out the dagger he carried with him. He quickly chanted a spell, and as the energy particles in the air flowed, a thin layer of light gradually covered the surface of the shiny dagger. Charge weapon. Ronan held the charged dagger in his backhand, hid it in his robe, and walked forward step by step with a serious expression. He only knew 2 spells, and although charge weapon was useless and its power was extremely average, but with his current physical fitness, it should be able to exert some combat power. After walking for a while, Ronan saw the trace of the wizard who was chasing him again. This guy was standing in the same place, holding a bottle of unknown potion in his hand and slowly pouring it into his mouth. Although Ronan didn't know what the other party drank, he could guess with his heels that it must be a recovery potion. The situation is the same as he guessed. Ronan couldn't help but cheer up. But it still seems not optimistic. Because the wizard saw Ronan go and come back, his weak side was exposed in front of Ronan, but his face was not panicked or nervous, and the look he gave Ronan became more and more mocking and disdainful. Damn it. Ronan was a little scared and nervous before, but now seeing the way the other party looked at him, the frustration in his heart turned into anger and he was not afraid anymore. He made up his mind and rushed towards the other party. Chapter 20 Double Click. Facing Ronan's charge, the wizard was not in a hurry, and even smiled, as if he was extremely speechless about Ronan's performance. Ronan was halfway through the charge before he remembered that the general way of fighting for wizards should be to try to distance themselves as much as possible, leaving enough distance for casting spells, and then throwing spells at each other. It is rare for someone to rush forward like him. He is a complete rookie, but he can't care about so much at this time. Charge weapon can only be effective in close combat. If he doesn't get closer, he can only be a target for others. Take the opportunity to kill him while he is casting spells. Ronan's thinking was clear, but he was almost dumbfounded the next second. The wizard raised his hand casually, and a ring on the ring finger of his left hand flashed, followed by a layer of transparent light curtain rising quickly, protecting him in the middle. Damn. Ronan couldn't help but swear. Protective magic tool. No wonder he was not afraid of taking advantage of the opportunity at all. It turned out that he had already made preparations. The magic tools with protective ability must be at least level 0 intermediate, because the most common, protection, runes are level 0 intermediate. Can a mere level 3 wizard apprentice like him break the protective power of level 0 intermediate magic tools? Ronan didn't know, but he was already halfway there, so he could only bite the bullet and go ahead. Woo. When he rushed to within about 5 meters of the wizard, Ronan raised his right hand and uttered a short syllable. In an instant, The dormant mental power in his mind became like boiling water, following a certain frequency and trembling rapidly. Expert level. Energy missile. When Ronan chanted the spell and raised his hand, the wizard in the protective light shield still had a mocking look on his face. When a short syllable fell, a large number of energy particles surged, the air was distorted, and a dark blue light ball as big as 2 fists was born in the void. The wizard was stunned for a moment. So fast. The dark blue ball of light dragged a terrifying whistling and tearing sound, and it came close in a blink of an eye. The wizard's face suddenly changed, and he raised his hand hurriedly. Boom! A terrifying airwave burst out with a sound, and the energy particle shock wave that spread out blew Ronan back. What kind of spell is this? A certain uncontrollable sharp and distorted voice sounded in the fluctuating airwaves. Looking up, I saw that the wizard in the gray robe was staring at Ronan with an unbelievable face. In front of him, a layer of transparent white light cover had already appeared on a large area of clear cracks visible to the naked eye. Ronan himself was shocked for a moment. The next second, it turned into great excitement and ecstasy. The power of the expert level, energy missile, is so great. The protection of the zero-level intermediate magic tool is broken at the touch. Ronan took a step forward, chanted the spell again, and directly fired another energy missile. The expert level proficiency level was once again demonstrated at this moment. Ronan's mental power was like a transparent string, and he uttered short auxiliary spell syllables, and a large number of energy particles gathered. The whole casting process was as smooth and natural as flowing water. When Ronan raised his hand for the second time, the wizard came back to his senses from the shock and tried to chant the spell at the first time. But before he finished half of the spell, the second dark blue light ball had already whizzed in. Boom! Crack! With the sound of something breaking, the light ball exploded, and the scattered energy particles rushed past like a turbid stream with mottled colors. When the noise subsided, Ronan took 2 steps forward cautiously, only to find that the wizard was left with only half of his body sticking on the ground, and the part above the chest and abdomen had long been blown to pieces by the energy missile. Ronan's first reaction was to relax. Then there was the surprise, and he was happy to win? Exclamation mark. It seemed that he won quite easily. Finally, there was the nausea that surged up in his stomach. When practicing magic, he had killed many wild animals such as wolves and deer, and most of them were blown to pieces. But they were just wild animals after all. Suddenly, a human body with half of its body missing was placed in front of him, especially by his own hands. The strong physical and psychological discomfort was like the day after a hangover, empty, numb, and disgusted. It took a long time to calm down, and Ronan began to review the battle just now. The first thing was the surprise of the power of the expert level, energy missile. After the proficiency of energy missile reached the expert level, Ronan knew that the power was much greater, and it had long exceeded the general zero-level low-level spells. But I didn't expect it to be so strong that it even blew away the protective shield of the intermediate magic tool, and it only took 2 shots. General zero-level intermediate spells may not have such an effect. This is still at the expert level. If you practice to above the expert level. Ronan's heart was pounding, and he felt as if he had dug up some treasure in an instant. He immediately made up his mind that he would practice energy missile like crazy to see what this ordinary low-level zero-level spell would become after reaching the maximum level. After standing there excitedly for a while, Ronan calmed down and prepared to run away, but he turned back after walking only 2 steps. Touch the corpse. I almost forgot to touch the corpse. With a complicated and uneasy mood, Ronan walked step by step to the dead wizard's body. He tilted his head to one side, trying not to look at the upper body of the corpse. He carefully took off the 2 rings on the corpse's hands, then quickly stepped back a few steps and took them in his hands to examine them. Both rings exuded fluctuations of spell energy. One was black, with an ordinary turquoise inlaid in the middle. The other was red all over, looking much more beautiful than the first one. Ronan infiltrated his mental power into the black turquoise ring and soon found traces of enchanted runes inside. This ring was enchanted with a total of 2 runes, both of which were zero-level intermediate protection runes. Ronan was delighted. A mid-level magic tool with 2 mid-level runes was considered good quality even among mid-level magic tools, and its price was much higher than that of most mid-level magic tools with 1 mid-level rune and 1 or 2 low-level runes. It also had 2 protection runes, which could be considered a small top-grade product. Looking back, He realized that he had to re-evaluate the power of the expert level energy missile. The protection of 2 runes was much stronger than that of a single rune. 2 blasts of it, the power felt like it was almost catching up with a high-level 0-level spell. It's mainly because the spell is cast quickly, 2 in a short period of time, without any buffer time. Ronan sighed twice, and then looked at another magic tool ring. The remaining red ring looked beautiful, but it turned out to be just a low-level 0-level magic tool. The ring was enchanted with a fireball rune and 2 runes that Ronan didn't recognize, all of which were low-level. Ronan guessed that the wizard had released 3 fireballs when he was chasing him. The third fireball, which followed a second one, was probably cast with the help of this fireball ring. He probably wanted to catch him off guard so that he could kill him, but he didn't expect that he would react quickly and dodge it. So he simply stopped and drank medicine to replenish his strength. Chapter 21 Level 4. 3 runes, including a non-universal fireball rune. According to the general price of low-level 0-level magic tools on the stalls in the wizard market, it can be worth at least dozens of low-level magic stones. Ronan secretly estimated the price of the fireball ring in his hand. He was not sure about the intermediate magic tool ring with 2 protection runes. This thing is too high-end, and you have to go to a professional magic tool sales store like Welling Workshop to buy it. This guy just drank a bottle of potion, and he may have. After taking off the ring, Ronan had no psychological barriers to touching the corpse. It might be that the huge harvest overwhelmed his fear of the corpse. This time he squatted directly beside the corpse and groped around with his hands. Soon he got a harvest. Ronan found a black waste bag with exquisite patterns under the robe on the right side of the body. He quickly opened it, but found that there were very few things inside. In addition to a dozen low-level magic stones, there was only a bottle of potion and a round brass badge. Ronan was a little disappointed. But it was normal. No wizard would carry all his belongings with him all the time. He picked up the potion and looked at it. Ronan, who had not yet started learning potions, could not tell what was inside. Let's go to a pharmacy and compare it later and we'll know. He put down the potion and picked up the brass badge. There was a small green owl pattern printed on the surface of the badge. It looked like an exclusive member badge of a certain organization or force. Thinking of this, Ronan's heart suddenly lifted again. An organization means there is a backer. Now that someone died here, would anyone come to track him down in the future? What if he was found as the murderer? Would there be accomplices on the way here now? Hunting, revenge, blood debts and blood repayment. All kinds of plots that he had seen in movies, TV, news and novels in his previous life began to roll in his mind uncontrollably. Ronan couldn't help but shudder slightly, and the sequelae of the previous murder also came back. He suddenly didn't dare to stay in this place any longer. He hurriedly gathered all the valuables, threw the badge and waste bag back on the body, turned around and left. His steps were fast. Originally, he wanted to go back to the place where the first body was, but now he gave up the idea and just wanted to escape as quickly as possible. For fear of being found, Ronan did not dare to return to his treehouse for 3 consecutive days. Wandering in the wild, sleeping in the open, he almost stopped all daily activities except meditation. 3 days later, dusty and exhausted, Ronan returned to his hut. After carefully taking out the key and pushing the door open, he looked around. In the dim and cramped hut, everything was basically the same as when he left. The first thing he did was to check the utility box in the corner. After seeing that the several engraved, clean, and shining runes, as well as the magic stones he had collected, were still there and had not been lost, Ronan breathed a sigh of relief and sat down on the chair. In these 3 days, Ronan also sorted out the things. The wizard he killed was also a murderer. The place he chose to kill was in the wild near the depths of the forest. After he saw the killing process, he was eager to silence him. Obviously, he was doing something that was not allowed to be seen in public. Such people must act in secret. After the death, the 2 bodies were thrown into the dense forest full of wild beasts. The bloody smell attracted carnivores and they could be cleaned up in 2 hours at most. Except for himself, no one in the world would know what happened in that place that day. His previous worries were indeed a bit redundant. However, although he thought so, Ronan still lived like a frightened bird in the next month. It was as if he had returned to the state when he first crossed over. It was not until he took the magic stones he had saved and took the time to go to the market and bought a bottle of low-level concentration potion. After drinking it, He was successfully promoted to 4th level wizard apprentice. Only then did he slowly calm down. Splash! On the calm lake, a figure broke through the water. He was a slender young man. He had fair skin, lake blue eyes, and half-long chestnut hair that stuck to his shoulders. He had a kind of masculine and wild handsomeness. Ronan pulled a handful of hair, shook out a lot of water droplets, and then walked step by step to the grass by the lake. Under the green walnut tree, Ronan sat down casually, letting the breeze dry the water stains on his body. Nothing has happened for more than a month. It's very likely that everything is really fine. Ronan murmured in a low voice. Just yesterday, he sneaked back to the place deep in the forest. He found that the body of the dead wizard had disappeared long ago, and the traces of the 2 battlefields were covered and buried by the newly grown weeds. Even if there are magical means to track down, it will probably be difficult in this situation. Ronan thought, and then took out 2 rings, one black and one red, from his waist. They were the 2 magic rings that Ronan had taken from the wizard at the beginning. During this period, Ronan would take them out and play with them from time to time. With my current mental power, it's a bit difficult to activate the 2 protection runes on the ring at the same time. If I want to be able to do it easily and not affect the use of other means, I guess I need the strength of a 6th level wizard apprentice. Ronan judged from this that the wizard's strength was at the level of a 6th level wizard apprentice, or even a 7th level. It was a fluke to think that such a powerful guy died in his hands. Underestimating the enemy, being in poor condition, and seriously underestimating my combat power ultimately led to failure and death. Ronan reviewed the situation in his mind, secretly taking this as a typical negative case to remind himself from time to time. Ronan also played another magic tool enchanted with a fireball. This thing is really easy to use. It only requires a simple guidance of mental power to activate a fireball. The power is similar to normal casting, but the release speed is much faster. After one guidance, the cooling time is about 20 seconds. It feels that it can only be used 2 or 3 times at most in a battle. Ronan also understood the other 2 low-level runes on the ring. They were a kind of non-universal rune called speed up, which slightly increased the speed of the wizard's casting and chanting. They were very useful in the low-level apprentice stage, but became useless at higher levels. Ronan did not dare to wear the 2 magic rings, but he always carried them with him in case of emergency. Carefully putting the rings back into his waist bag, Ronan stood up, shook his body, and then put on his robe. It was very comfortable to wear it without lining, especially after taking a shower. However, Ronan's only 2 robes were a little worn out, and the one he wore even had several holes. If he ran, the wind would blow into the robe. I have to buy a new one. Ronan touched the holes in the robe, thought about it, and decided, it's better to just buy a robe. Ronan now has some savings. He had earned more than a month's worth of rune engraving magic stones, which he had accumulated before, plus the money he had taken from the pockets of dead wizards, minus the money he had spent on a bottle of low-level concentration potion. He still had more than 30 low-level magic stones on hand. A common wizard robe only cost a dozen low-level magic stones, and if it was second-hand, it would be even cheaper. Unfortunately, Ronan didn't have much money. If he had more money, he would definitely consider buying a set of magic leather armor. This month, his proficiency in ascetic body forging has increased a lot, and his physique has also improved a lot. If he could change to a set of magic leather armor, he could play a lot of his physical advantages. But with a protection ring, it's not a big need. Ronan walked towards the forest. While walking, he brought up his character panel. Name, Ronan Damien. Age, 16. Talent, no attribute affinity. Strength, level 4 wizard apprentice, 5%. Skills, basic meditation, expert 2/800. Energy missile, expert 531/800. Charged weapon, proficient 14 out of 400. Rune marking, clean, proficient 102/200. Shining, entry 56 out of 100. Ascetic body forging, entry 87 out of 100. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22: The Beginning of Chaos. Level 4 Wizard Apprentice. Or he got there by taking drugs. But no matter what, Ronan is now a proper mid-level wizard apprentice, and also a rune master. Thinking back to the miserable state when he first crossed over a few months ago, it was like a dream. Can't stop taking drugs. After experiencing the feeling of the experience bar skyrocketing in an instant, it is difficult to level up slowly and honestly step by step. After all, it is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. The key is that Ronan feels that he can continue to take drugs, no problem at all. The biggest disadvantage of taking mental power auxiliary potions is that the mental power stimulated by the potion is not pure and will be mixed with many impurities. Generally speaking, after taking the concentration potion for the second time, the mental power will enter a plateau period where the growth is suspended. At this stage, ordinary meditation no longer has a significant effect. Meditation will no longer increase mental power, and it is even possible that the mental power will regress after meditation. This is a process of self-tempering of mental power and elimination of impurities after taking the drug. This is what the shopping guide at the pharmacy told him when he bought a concentration potion. But why didn't I encounter this problem? Ronan was a little confused. After taking the concentration potion twice, his mental power continued to grow during meditation. Is it because I am gifted? Or is it because the basic meditation technique has broken through to the expert level? Ronan felt that it was most likely the latter. Perhaps it was also related to his practice of austerity body training. The practice of austerity body training was too painful, and the mental will was tempered unconsciously during the pain. A very reasonable explanation. It was also thanks to the rapid growth of mental power that Ronan made rapid progress in austerity body training, and was about to reach the proficient level. Now he began to try the second posture in the booklet. Although the plateau is gone, the drug resistance still exists. The effect of the second dose was obviously much worse, and it didn't even rise by half a level. The third, fourth, and subsequent doses will become increasingly worse. It is said that many people have no effect after the fifth dose. Well, it doesn't matter. Just drink it first, and then switch to a higher level potion when it has no effect. Ronan was quite single about this. If his original body had the qualifications, he would probably not be able to break through to become a formal wizard even if he practiced until his death. His own talent was poor, and if he didn't rely on some external assistance, the gap between him and others would only widen. After more than a month of hard training, the proficiency of energy missile rose sharply by nearly 300. This is the expert level proficiency of 300. For every point of improvement, he has to cast the spell 2 or 3 times, and even more in the future. With a proficiency of 300 in a month, Ronan has to cast energy missile more than 30 times a day on average. In addition to rune engraving, bodybuilding, and meditation, it can be seen how hard Ronan works on this spell. If I continue to practice like this for another month, or at most 2 months, the proficiency level of energy missile will be able to be improved again. Ronan was looking forward to it. Expert level energy missile can break the double rune protective magic tools. If it is further improved, won't its power be comparable to the 0-level advanced spell? It is better to be proficient in one than to be proficient in 100 things. Ronan is not planning to learn more advanced attack spells now. If he has the time, he might as well upgrade energy missile to the maximum level first. Unconsciously, he walked to the entrance of the forest. Ronan was about to follow the forest path to step into the shade, when suddenly, a breeze blew. The trees and grass rustled. A yellow oak leaf floated past Ronan's eyes with the wind. Ronan looked at the leaf slowly falling to the ground and suddenly woke up. Hoddam has entered Hoddam Dwarf Market. Ronan walked out of a shop specializing in wizard robes in a brand new gray robe, with a novelty and joy on his face that had not yet subsided. He bought a new robe. A proper wizard robe cost him 15 low-level magic stones, enchanted with 2 low-level runes of 0 level, cleanliness, and constant temperature, and also gave him a beautifully crafted pointed wizard hat. Adhering to the principle of not showing off his wealth, Ronan specially chose a robe with a color and style similar to the previous one. Most people can't tell the difference and will just think he changed into an ordinary robe. I don't have to wash my clothes anymore. The effect of constant temperature is just right for the coming winter. Ronan thought, looking up, and saw that the leaves of the champstillis trees on both sides of the central street of the dwarf market had begun to turn slightly yellow. The temperature was no longer as hot as before, and Ronan, who practiced bodybuilding, was now particularly sensitive to this temperature difference. Shaking the hem of his robe, Ronan walked out of the market. This time he came here as usual, selling the engraved runestones, and purchasing some engraving materials and daily necessities. On the way to the entrance of the market, Ronan kept seeing wizards who were well-dressed and whose temperament and conversation were obviously different from those of ordinary wandering wizards coming and going, entering and leaving various shops. Recently, there seemed to be a lot more academy wizards coming to the dwarf market to consume than before. Ronan even saw several high-level wizards with cold expressions, exuding an imposing aura, and hurriedly walking on the street as if they had their own invisible aura. Those who can give people this feeling are basically 9th-level wizard apprentices who have transformed their spirits and energy and have almost stepped half a foot into the door of formal wizards. Such people are rare in the market on weekdays. Although a little puzzled, Ronan didn't take it too seriously, guessing that it might be some collective activities at the Hoddam Wizard Academy recently. It is said that the wizards of the academy will hold an internal competition every once in a while. On the one hand, it is to test the cultivation, and on the other hand, it is also for the purpose of sharpening the combat ability of the wizards of the academy so that they will not be rusty. After all, many wizards in the academy have been immersed in research for many years because of their favorable conditions and do not have to fight for a little resource. Some even forget the spells they have mastered long ago. Is it possible that the academy will hold a big competition recently? Ronan guessed randomly. This matter has nothing to do with him, a small 4th-level wandering wizard apprentice who has just climbed out of the poverty line. He just wants to gossip. After leaving the dwarf market, Ronan thought about where to go next. It's still early, let's go to the wizard market and then find a restaurant to eat? The thin pie and vanilla pudding in that restaurant last time tasted pretty good, we can go there again. Just thinking about it, Ronan suddenly noticed that there seemed to be a lot of people gathered at the entrance of the town, and now there are people constantly rushing towards that direction. Obviously, everything was normal when he came here in the morning. Ronan's eyes flashed, and he also walked towards the place where the crowd gathered. During the process, he listened to the discussions of the people around him, and words such as black robe, conflict, formal wizard, and college genius kept pouring into his ears. When he finally squeezed into the most crowded place, Ronan found that everyone was looking up in one direction. He looked up as well, and his pupils quickly shrank. At the entrance and exit of the town, a tall wooden stake had been erected at some point. At the top of the stake, a corpse wearing a black robe, with a horrible appearance and covered in blood was nailed there. In the crowd, someone sighed deeply and whispered in a heavy tone. The wizards of the Black Witch Land have launched an invasion. Hoddam is going to be in chaos. Chapter 23. Shut up. The night was dark. There were no stars or moon. In the forest, the night wind blew through the trees, and the cry of night owls could be heard in the distance. Ronan broke the dead branches in his hand into pieces bit by bit, and threw them into the swaying bonfire in front of him, listening to the crackling sound of the dead branches being burned by the flames. Beside him, there were more than 20 people in robes. Everyone gathered around the fire, and from time to time, there were bursts of whispers. The atmosphere on the scene was more solemn than the last time Ronan attended the funeral of the wizard Potter. Through the foggy night, Ronan saw that the faces that were illuminated by the firelight were mostly worried. This gathering was initiated by Old Wells. Those who came were wizard residents living near this treehouse area. The reason for the gathering was naturally because Ronan heard the news of the invasion of wizards in the Dark Wizard Land in the town today. He was called by Old Wells as soon as he got home. Ronan felt that Old Wells was a bit like the aunt of the neighborhood committee in his previous life, who was busy running around for this community every day and worried about all kinds of things. He was also the host of Potter's funeral last time. Wells, everyone is here. If you have something to say, please speak up quickly and don't delay everyone's work. I still have a potion boiling on the stove. Just as he was thinking, Ronan heard a sharp voice. Looking up, he found that the speaker was a middle-aged man in his 40s, with a thin figure, nose and lip rings, and a face full of impatience. Ronan noticed the mental fluctuations emanating from the man, the level of a 4th-level wizard apprentice, which was rare in the treehouse area. Then let's get started. After the nose-ring wizard urged, Old Wells, who was standing in the middle of the crowd, coughed lightly and walked out slowly. The voices on the field gradually subsided, and everyone stopped talking and focused their eyes on Old Wells. I believe everyone has heard about the invasion of the Black Wizards today. The main purpose of calling everyone here is to discuss countermeasures. We live together here, and we are all gray robes. When we encounter such a big crisis, we should try to resist it together. I personally have some experience. Before Old Wells finished speaking, a sneer of disdain rang out on the field. It was the wizard with a nose ring who just spoke. This guy interrupted Old Wells' opening remarks. What is there to discuss about this matter? Do you think that with just a few of us, we can withstand the invasion of the Black Robe Wizards? The wizard with a nose ring sneered repeatedly, with disdain and speechlessness written all over his face. As soon as he said this, many people on the field became more worried, their eyes flickered, and some even had obvious intentions to leave. Of course, our limited strength cannot resist a general trend, but a group of people together is better than being alone, after all. Old Wells suddenly raised his voice and said, I once experienced an invasion of the Black Witch Land. In an instant, all the people who were ready to move on the field quieted down. Ronan also looked at Old Wells with surprise. I was still very young at that time. Old Wells continued to speak slowly, and his old and low voice passed through the swaying campfire, bringing out a breath of memories. I was just a first-level wizard apprentice. I also lived here, and then I encountered the war between Hoddam and the Black Witch Land. At that time. Get to the point, Wells. No one wants to hear the boring stories of your youth. Ronan frowned and looked at the nose-ring wizard who spoke again. He was beginning to dislike this guy a little bit now. Old Wells was not angry, but paused and said, according to my experience, although there is news of the invasion of the Black Witch Land now, the day of the invasion is not as fast as we imagined. How long does it usually take? Someone asked. Maybe it will take 1 to 2 years, or even longer. Old Wells replied, so there is no need to panic now. Instead of worrying, we should think of ways to overcome the difficulties together. If nothing unexpected happens, the prices of all kinds of goods in Hoddam will rise significantly in the future. The rent of the worst located house in the town has risen to almost 1 magic stone per month this afternoon. Someone said worriedly. Old Wells thought for a while and said, there is no need to follow the trend and move to the town. The forest is still safe. That's because you feel safe. The wizard with a nose ring retorted, what if the Black Robe appears in the forest tomorrow? The rent of houses in the town has skyrocketed. In my opinion, everyone should move to the town and find a place to live before the house prices reach their peak. Old Wells looked at the wizard with a nose ring calmly. If you go to the town too early, you may use up your savings before the real crisis comes, and you will be forced to move out again. The wizard with a nose ring sneered, that's better than having money but not being able to find a place to live. Impossible. Old Wells shook his head, the people of Hoddam are not so numerous that if they all move into the town, they will be so crowded that there is no place to stay. Living in the town does not necessarily require a house. Do you want so many of us to sleep on the streets like beggars? The wizard with a nose ring looked grim. That's just the worst-case scenario. I think this humiliation is nothing compared to losing your life at the hands of a dark wizard. Before that, we continue to stay in the forest. In case my experience is wrong and the Black Robes invade in advance, my suggestion is to form a patrol team. Everyone should take some time to take turns on duty every day to discover the situation and issue a timely warning. I have to say that this is really the stupidest idea I have ever heard of. Ridiculous. Wells, I think you are so old that you have become confused. Shut up, you idiot. An impatient low roar suddenly sounded, and everyone looked at a position with a stunned expression. They saw a handsome young man in a gray robe walking out of the shadows, staring coldly in the direction of the wizard with a nose ring. Are you talking to me? The wizard with a nose ring pointed at his nose in a daze. Ronan said calmly, besides you, is there another idiot here? A childish and crisp laughter sounded at the edge of the crowd, but when everyone looked over, the laughter stopped immediately. A little girl hid behind Old Wells with a guilty look on her face. The wizard with a nose ring glared at the little girl fiercely, then looked at Ronan and said gloomily, boy, who gave you the courage to say that to me? The wizard with a nose ring was halfway through his words when he suddenly sensed the mental fluctuations emanating from Ronan, and his face suddenly changed. Level 4. He looked at Ronan carefully from top to bottom, his face full of incomprehension. So young? You live here. None of your business. Ronan looked cold. He had been tolerating this guy for a long time, and he couldn't bear it anymore. To put it bluntly, all those present were at the bottom of the Hoddam wizard circle, generally wizard apprentices of level 1 or 2, 2 or 3. Although nose ring wizard in front of him was at the same level 4 as him, he had a double rune intermediate protection ring in his hand, plus the expert level, energy missile, so he really didn't take this guy seriously. Chapter 24 Powerless. Okay, you're capable, just wait for me. In the end, the wizard with a nose ring still didn't dare to confront Ronan head-on. He left with a harsh word and a grim look on his face. After this incident, the result of this temporary gathering became inconclusive. The wizards scattered and left, but they all looked at Ronan with strange eyes before leaving. Surprise, shock, confusion and a little fear. No one could have imagined that the young wizard who had been quiet and had little presence in the crowd was actually a hot-tempered 4th-level apprentice. Ronan estimated that after tonight, topics about him would most likely be hotly discussed in this treehouse area for a few days. Thank you, Ronan. After the crowd dispersed, only Ronan and Old Wells were left by the campfire. Facing Old Wells's thanks, Ronan shook his head and said nothing. Old Wells' expression was very complicated, as if he had just met Ronan. Old Wells knew some of Ronan's background, and Ronan did not hide it. He said, I have mastered rune engraving, made some money, and bought some spiritual potions. You don't have to explain to me. Everyone has their own secrets. Old Wells smiled, then solemnly reminded Ronan, you have made a grudge with Eugene today. He is a sinister and stingy person. He may not be able to swallow this breath. You'd better be careful that he will retaliate. If he is not afraid of death, then come. Ronan sneered, and suddenly felt that it was not appropriate to say such things in front of Old Wells, so he changed the subject and said, I heard from him before, he seems to be a pharmacist. Yes. Old Wells nodded, Eugene has been studying potions for many years, and he is quite famous in this area. A pharmacist actually lives in the treehouse area. Ronan was a little confused, just like Eugene had been confused about him before. Maybe it's to save costs. It's more convenient to live in the forest to collect potions. And Old Wells glanced at Ronan and sighed, his talent in potion science is far less than yours in rune science. Ronan was embarrassed to answer, and suddenly felt someone secretly pulling the corner of his robe. Looking down, he found a cute little blonde girl winking at him mischievously. It was Potter's daughter, Cheryl. After being adopted, she has been following Old Wells and Ronan glanced to the side, and the wizard girl who lived by the tree spring stood quietly in the shadow beside her like a ghost, without any sense of existence. This guy seemed to be a little socially anxious, and Ronan subconsciously shrank back when he looked at her. Ronan still remembered the mental soothing spell that the girl cast at Potter's funeral, and nodded to her kindly. Turning around, he talked to Old Wells about business. What are you going to do next about what was discussed at the meeting today? Go on. I will go and lobby one by one in private. It's good to convince one more person. Old Wells paused, then continued, I will go to Eugene and resolve the conflict between you. After all, it was caused by me. Ronan ignored the second half of Old Wells's words, thought about it, and said seriously, Old Wells, is the invasion of the Black Wizard land really that dangerous and terrible? This is a war between wizards. Old Wells had a complicated expression and said slowly, it will only be more cruel than you think. Why would a Black Wizard land provoke a dispute for no reason? Ronan still couldn't understand it. Resources, ideas, heritage. It may even be just because they are tired of peace. Old Wells's eyebrows revealed a sense of powerlessness. All reasons may become the reason for them to start a war. I remember that the last invasion seemed to be just a game that the big guys played on a whim. Just a game. Ronan gritted his teeth. He felt as powerless as Old Wells. The confidence and courage he had when facing the nose-ringed wizard Eugene disappeared at this moment. He once again witnessed the cruelty of the wizard world. In the eyes of the superiors, the inferiors were just chess pieces on the game board. A wizard apprentice like him, who lived at the bottom of the society, did not even qualify to be a chess piece. Can we leave Hoddam before the invasion? Ronan lowered his head and reached out to touch Cheryl's little head. I remember that you booked a boat ticket for leaving in the second half of the year. Can you still buy it now? Although Ronan did not want to leave this place of wizard inheritance and did not want to be a wandering wizard, he would rather choose wandering than losing his life in the war. The boats to leave the wizard land are arranged by Hoddam Academy. Even my boat ticket for the second half of the year has been returned. Old Wells sighed heavily and said, it's difficult to leave now. Can't you go by yourself without taking a boat? Ronan did not give up, but Old Wells just smiled bitterly and shook his head. That's too risky. You need to go through the Warcraft forest. Even a formal wizard may not survive. Ronan was silent. The two did not speak for a long time. As the night deepened, the bonfire in front of them gradually dimmed. Cheryl yawned with sleepiness. Old Wells finally said, "You go back first. I will arrange the patrol team and notify you when the time comes." Ronan nodded and turned to leave. In the following days, Ronan practiced like crazy. He compressed his natural sleep time to less than 2 hours a day, and spent almost all the rest of the time on hard practice. In the meantime, he took time to go to the town again, and found that the situation was much more serious than he had imagined. The whole Hoddam seemed to be caught in a tense and anxious atmosphere. From potion materials, magic tools and equipment to grains, bread, food and other daily necessities, almost everything was rising in price. The most outrageous increase was the rent. Ronan found out that the rent in the worst living environment in the town was almost 2 low-level magic stones per month. In the past, it only cost 10 magic stone fragments. It has almost doubled by 20 times. Forest, tree house. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Ronan sat at the table, trying to cut a piece of burnt black steak on the plate with a dagger. The blade rubbed against the plate, making a sharp sound that made his teeth ache. After cutting for a long time, the steak on the plate did not change much, so Ronan simply gave up and grabbed the steak with his hands, put it in his mouth and started to bite it hard. Is this the meat of the monster? It seems to taste a little more fragrant than ordinary beast meat, but it's too hard to bite. Ronan finally bit off a piece of meat with his teeth, and he chewed it over and over in his mouth for a long time but couldn't chew it, so he could only swallow it whole. The piece of meat entered his stomach, and he immediately felt full. Not long after, it seemed to turn into a trace of warm current, slowly blending into Ronan's body. Ronan finished eating all the steaks, as if he had completed a difficult and big project, and lay on the chair for a long time, unwilling to move. Chapter 25 Gain 2 magic stones per pound of monster meat, it is indeed. Ronan thought for a long time and couldn't find a suitable adjective, and finally he could only use the word awesome to evaluate it. The physique of monsters is special, and the flesh and blood contain a large amount of energy particles, which is easier to open the taste buds of wizards who deal with energy particles all year round. So even if it is just a simple cooking, the taste of monster meat will taste better than ordinary meat. Ordinary wizard apprentices are already troubled by the problem of energy particle erosion. After tasting monster meat, they have to take magic potions to dissolve the accumulation of energy particles. Only formal wizards whose physiques have been initially transformed by energy particles can eat it unscrupulously. Ronan's austerity body forging broke through to the proficient level not long ago, and his physique has been greatly improved, so he can use it with confidence. He mainly wants to try something new. After the news of the imminent invasion of the Black Wizards spread, the whole of Hoddam was in a state of panic before the war, and the prices of various materials soared. I am afraid that the only thing that did not rise in price, but plummeted, is monster meat. According to the butcher, because of the shortage of supplies, every wizard in Hoddam is trying their best to arm themselves and use every magic stone on the blade to prepare for the upcoming battle. There are fewer people willing to spend money to satisfy their appetite, so the price of monster meat, which is not easy to store, has naturally dropped. This 0-level monster white-tusked porcupine meat used to cost 5 low-level magic stones per pound. Ronan sat on the chair and picked his teeth for a while. I don't know what happened, but I just felt very hot all over. Even drinking 2 large pots of boiled water couldn't extinguish the anger in my body, so I could only start practicing body training on the spot, trying to vent the energy that was about to overflow. 2 hours later, Ronan, who was wet with sweat and seemed to have just been pulled out of the water, finally felt that he had returned to normal. Is this the only thing that happens to me after eating monster meat? Am I allergic to monster meat? Ronan was puzzled. It stands to reason that if energy particles accumulate in the body and cannot be discharged, this is not the symptom. It should be very painful. But he just felt like he had taken some kind of tonic, and his whole body was swollen. He casually called up the character panel, took a look, and said, "Oh." The skill column on the panel showed that the proficiency of austerity bodybuilding had increased by 11 points compared to before. And this was just to practice after dinner. Could it be that the monster meat has an auxiliary effect on the bodybuilding method? Ronan blinked his eyes, feeling incredible. After thinking about it carefully, he felt that he was making a fuss. I'm afraid this is not a secret at all. The effect of monster meat is insignificant to wizards. Wizards who can afford monster meat will never focus on bodybuilding. Few wizards who practice bodybuilding methods can afford monster meat. I can barely be considered an outlier. As for those mortals who practice the way of knights, they probably have long regarded monster meat as a rare treasure. In any case, this is good news for Ronan. With the help of monster meat, his progress in ascetic bodybuilding will undoubtedly be much faster, and it just so happens that monster meat is cheap now. After a slight joy, the haze rolled back again. Ronan walked to the side of the hut, took down a one-handed sword hanging on the wall, holding it in his hand and waving it casually, sighing softly. More than half a month has passed, and the tense atmosphere in Hoddam Wizardland has not diminished at all, but has become more and more intense. There is a growing feeling that a war is about to begin. The corpse of the black-robed wizard hanging on the wooden stake at the entrance of the town had long been dried to pulp, and 2 more wooden stakes were added. The soaring prices of commodities and housing, the freshly bloody corpse of the black-robed wizard, and the rumors flying everywhere were constantly provoking the fragile and sensitive nerves of the lower-level wizards in the wizard base. Ronan was also affected. It can even be said that Ronan, who was accustomed to the harmonious social life in his previous life, was more anxious than ordinary people when facing the coming of war. He followed a trend and purchased a wave of supplies, and stored enough food in the originally small hut to feed him for half a year. In addition to practicing every day, he also set aside some time to collect wild fruits, dry them or to make them into jam. Most of the meat of the wild animals he hunted was made into bacon and jerky. Ronan didn't know that he had so many skills. They were all forced out by anxiety. Fortunately, as a rune master, Ronan also benefited from the war. The prices of magic tools and equipment skyrocketed, and the prices of runes also rose with the tide. The price of the clean rune has risen to 2 magic stones, and the price of the shining rune has risen to 3. This increase is still small. The price of runes above the intermediate level has risen dramatically. The most popular, protection, rune has risen to the price of 15 magic stones. Ronan would naturally not give up this great opportunity to make a fortune. He has long begun to study the engraving of the protection rune and even developed a strong interest in the work of an enchanter. After all, a rune master is still a worker for others, like a low-level assembly line worker, while an enchanter is different. He can be considered a high-level technician. At the same level, the income gap between the two is quite large. Unfortunately, let alone enchanting, Ronan has been studying a small protection rune for more than half a month and has not yet gotten started. The complexity and difficulty of engraving the 0-level intermediate rune far exceeded his expectations. Even with the help of the panel, his self-study progress is comparable to a turtle's crawl. Holding the one-handed sword he bought at the wizard market for half a low-level magic stone, Ronan practiced a mundane knight's sword technique that the seller gave him with his sword. He felt good, so he put down the sword and practiced engraving the protection rune. Facing the magic ring on his hand that was enchanted with a finished protection rune, he practiced until his mental power was almost exhausted and several blank rune stones were wasted. Ronan rubbed his brows tiredly, absorbing the gains and insights fed back by the practice panel several times, while taking out a blue potion in a beautiful crystal bottle from his waist bag. Low-level concentration potion. Affected by the war, the price of potions is now ridiculously high. Fortunately, Ronan emptied his family's wealth when the price surge was not so exaggerated, and sold the low-level healing potion he had stolen from the dead wizard, which he later found out was specially used for healing. He collected a sum of magic stones and bought 3 bottles of low-level concentration potions in one go. He had already drunk 2 bottles, and now he had the 3rd and final bottle in his hand. The effect is getting worse and worse. I hope I can successfully break through. Ronan looked at the 94% progress bar behind the 4th-level wizard apprentice on the character panel and prayed silently in his heart. Without any hesitation, he unscrewed the crystal bottle and drank the whole bottle of potion in one breath, then rinsed it with boiled water 3 times and drank it all. After doing all this, Ronan quickly climbed onto the bed, sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and began to concentrate on meditation. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.